I'm Brandon.
And I'm Jesse.
We're Cannabis School. Having cannabis-infused conversations
with everyday people,
cannabis companies,
celebrities,
and your mom.
Welcome to the Sesh. Wonderful guest, a very good friend of mine from long ago when we were just tiny tots and she kicked my ass all the time. And she was so awesome. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you here. Now, I was telling Brandon all about you.
I'm just excited you kicked his ass. I think that's fucking hilarious. Like, how old was the last time you think you guys when you beat his ass?
We're gonna talk about
When was that? Was that senior year?
Oh, no.
Was it? Oh, no, it was senior year.
It was
should have been.
after senior year. I was friends with your sister.
Mm-hmm.
I was hanging out with her in the backyard, and you were the tough guy that wanted to show off a little bit.
Yeah, I was probably flirting.
I could see that.
Yeah, you were. And then you came out. I think we were on a trampoline or something. You're like, look at these moves I just learned doing all your martial art moves. And I was like, what, you mean like this?
She did it, and I was just like,
worked it on you.
Shit.
Yeah.
But it was, you know what, though? This is the craziest thing. And as time goes, we know that we have these connections with people, super strong connections, like ours, dude. We've been friends for we've been great friends. Yeah. And now, through family and all that stuff, we're connected. But there was something pulling at me. And Amber and I have been connections on Facebook for years. And she laughs at my memes because it's literally all I post. And then she always had these very inspirational, very, very energetic, very just moving posts, always concerned about others. And I just had this thought, and I'm like, I got to reach out to her. And she was feeling the exact same thing.
Yeah, I was like, he's hanging around. We haven't seen each other for a long time. We're kind of in the same vibe, thought process.
Yeah. So I am, you have had a tumultuous past, and I don't want to go too far into that unless you're comfortable with it. But, I'm just fascinated by your journey. Now, you have a few kids.
A few.
How many kids you got?
I have 7 kids.
7 kids.
Yeah.
How old's your oldest?
28. Turning 29 this year.
Dang.
I'm 46. I started young.
Hey.
16.
Some of us are just overachievers.
It was very active.
Very active.
Always in one.
Hey,
more
you know
than
what?
kicking ass, but
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's good.
yeah.
Kicking ass and
Taking
ass.
something.
Yeah, getting ass.
Oh,
So
that's okay. I mean, it is Utah. I was 22 when I had my first kid.
Yeah.
So
I was 28.
Wow.
yeah, you're old. For Utah,
I was
you're old. as
28
shit.
by the time I had my last child.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, my first was
Baby.
my first was born
What
at that time.
was the decision? Did you want? Was it a planned number 7?
None of them were planned. Which
None of
sounds-
them.
No, just
Right.
blessings.
But sometimes sometimes you're not planning it, but it's not not planned.
Yeah, it's not like you're trying to avoid it.
Yeah.
Please, sir, take that penis away from me. I'm full.
Well, it's one of those things I had a mindset of how do I describe this? I was pretty responsible. The older I got, obviously, I had to grow up really quickly when I was young. Having a baby when you're 16, I placed him for adoption. And then I ended up getting back together with the same dad. And then we had another child, and I placed her for adoption with the same family. And we'll have to talk about her at some point.
Yeah. Go.
But when I placed them for adoption, I had to grow up really quickly, and I really started to learn what was really important, and it shifted my mindset very dramatically. And so even though I didn't make the smartest decisions after the fact, it's having more kids wasn't something that I was I'm gonna replenish the earth with all of my seed.
7.
It's not that many, really.
I mean, I
married
Jesse
a
beat,
half Tongan, so
Yeah, true.
yeah,
Small families. That's a small family.
right,
Oh, that's cute. That little family moved in.
right.
Hey, bro,
his
come on
dad
over
was
here.
number 13 of 13 kids or something. So
Yeah, see that's a really large family.
yeah,
That is.
But I will tell you this, like, as far as kids go, some people are like, I want to have 1 or 2 kids, which is cool. Some people aren't just made to be a parent that
Yeah.
hovers around their kids all the time and whatnot. I was one of those people that was part of like who I'm made to be. But I'm like one of those people that I love to like be a mom to everybody. I know that probably sounds really annoying, but
No.
I love to love people and nurture them and inspire them and like encourage them to be the best versions of themselves, because that's what I learned along the process of all of this. So having kids, it's like when you have more than 3 kids, they kind of just start taking care of each other unless you train them to be like fighting each other. But I didn't. I was very conscious of like welcoming my kids into each other's lives. For instance, like I would give birth to my children at home without, naturally and everything.
Did you have a doula or like did you
No,
just
it's
do it
just
on
me.
your own?
Well, let me rephrase that. My first kids I did have at home, or excuse me, in the hospital with a midwife. One of them I had in a driveway.
Wow.
By accident.
What kind of car?
Corolla.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually,
Continue.
it was literally on the driveway. She literally fell on the cement.
It's like one of those shows, those
Did they put
911 shows.
Did they put out a tarp or like?
No.
Just gotta go.
Like, let's tell the story so this doesn't
Yeah. No, it doesn't
Okay.
sound horrible. It sounds like
Okay.
one of those shows you'd see on Lifetime.
Yeah, right.
And there you were born in the driveway. And it's
Unexpected
like raining.
moments. It's your life. It's how it happens.
Okay, this is really interesting too, because the child that this was, her name is Alexandria. She was my second child. She's the one that I placed for adoption with her brother. So I was living at home with my parents. I started labor early hours of the morning, maybe 3 o'clock in the morning or so. And I grew up an athlete, so I give birth like an athlete, right? I'm like, let's do this. Let's go.
Yeah. Wrist straps.
No
Sweatband.
No fear, just like,
Let's do it.
yeah.
Get my weight belt.
You had like the Eye of the Tiger playlist going.
Birthing playlist. There you go. Hit
You'd be
it.
surprised, like, actually giving birth requires a tremendous amount of relaxation and like easing into trusting the process.
To adjust your body.
I knew exactly how to do it with my body because I was familiar with like being an athlete. I knew my body and I was very confident in myself to give birth for some reason. So anyway, long story short, my dad, he used to take sleeping pills at night, and he was the kind of person that was like very, shall we say, like aggressive. So when you'd wake him up, he's like swinging at you, right? So I didn't want to wake him up right away. I'm
Sounds
in labor.
fair.
I didn't want him to be like, what's going on? Whack. It's happened numerous times. But anyway, long story short, I ended up taking almost an hour to get up the stairs, and I gave birth to her in an hour and a half.
Oh my God.
And he was trying to say, like, he was kind of in a dizzy state and everything.
Yeah.
Waking up. So he's physically trying to push me out the door. And I was in transition. And when you're in transition, it's like the most intense part of the labor where you're not even in your head thinking logical thoughts.
Every pain is just taken over.
It's the pain, but it's also like the feeling of like it's very instinctual. It's like you're not in your thoughts.
The body takes over.
Yes.
Autopilot.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm also extremely spiritual, so I had a lot of like trust in whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen kind of a thing. And I just kind of followed my guidance. So anyway, he's like pushing me outside. There's maybe 1 or 2 inches of snow on the grass. And I'm looking at it from the front door while he's pushing me out. And I'm like, okay, I can have her there if I need to, if I can't get to the car. And you can't say no to my dad, right? So I'm like, okay, we're going outside. She's in my pelvis.
Oh.
I'm trying to waddle down the stairs a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Just pressure.
Right. And then I finally get to the car. I can't even get inside of it because I'm contraction on top of contraction. And she's in my pelvis, so I can't even sit, right? So my dad's trying to push me in the car, and he's trying to help. He's trying to be helpful, but he's not.
Yeah.
And I have to face towards the back of the car in the front seat with my knees,
On the
one
seat.
knee on the seat, and I couldn't even like put my other knee inside. So I had my left leg outside of the car. The door was partially opened. He's trying to shut the door on my leg. Like, wait a second. So anyway, I'm wearing like a gown, like that maybe went to my mid thighs, or excuse me, my mid calf. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, I'm not thinking, I'm just like in my mind processing. If I just let her head come out, then I can like reach down and grab her. So I just relax my pelvis and my perineum. And it's not just her head that comes out. She comes like,
out.
Well, it was like a pop, 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 and then slither. Like,
Oh my gosh.
I know that
Wow.
sounds really weird, but and then she ended up like landing on the seat and then sliding down my leg and then my left leg and then ended up on the driveway on the floor on the ground.
Oh my goodness.
And my dad's night blind, but he happened to see her for some reason, so he picks her up. I had a long enough umbilical cord that it didn't like tear the placenta from my uterine wall, otherwise it could have bled to death.
Yeah.
And then I had to stop my dad and say, hand me my daughter. So he's like, oh, hands her to me. And then I'm like walking inside the house. This is in February. She was born on the 28th.
Oh wow.
And then I walk in the
Very
front
nice.
door and my brother, you know, Dan,
Yeah.
he's like scared of period blood, right? It's
Yeah.
like makes
Did
him
he
queasy.
pass out?
There's like a few drops of blood on the tile in the front entryway of my house. My dad yelled at him to go and mop that up. So he's at the front door, wide-eyed, mopping up a few drops of blood and looking at me carrying a baby. And he's like, what is happening here?
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then I ended up on my parents' bed. Paramedics came. There was like 6 new paramedics or something where they were just fresh. They've not
They're
been out
so
there.
and
green.
they end up looking like your brother.
And they're all men. And I'm 16. I'm inexperienced with having people look
Yeah.
at me like that. So I'm on my parents' bed, and the main paramedic is trying to explain things, pointing to basically my body spread legged, and they're like, all their looks on their face were like, what in the world is happening?
Oh my gosh.
So it was really kind of embarrassing, but we all kind of laugh about it now. Anyway, that daughter, she ended up playing in the Olympics last year and won a bronze medal for Team USA rugby.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, so we make jokes about her, like she was just anxious to get out and
Yeah.
come into the world and do her thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can see that because I saw one of her plays that she did. I was just like,
the play.
the
yeah.
play.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a hell of a story.
Yeah,
That's
Interesting,
so
right?
crazy.
Yeah.
yeah.
So did you have all the rest of them at home then, past that?
I had, let's see, my last 2 at home in a bathtub, just me and my ex-husband,
Wow.
and the other ones at the hospital. Yeah,
I had a
With
friend do
midwife.
that.
one in a like emergent, or in a like tiny,
Were they preemie?
yeah. Oh no, not preemie. What do you call it? Like a checkup room, like one of
Oh,
tiny rooms.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Jeez.
but yeah,
And that's just childhood.
yeah. So how did we even get on that subject? How
Doesn't
did we
matter.
even start talking about? But
We
I
were
was
going over
to
there,
the
and you
point-
said you had
Yeah.
you had your child in the driveway, and then
Yeah.
we kind of went from there because we're just like, what?
Yeah,
That's so crazy. So then after that, you had all your other kids,
yeah.
and how old's the youngest?
She's turning 18 in a couple months.
So you have a
That's
10-year
amazing.
gap between your kids? You have
No,
7
it was
kids?
like they're all like 2 years to a year and a half apart. So yeah, one after another.
Yeah, but you said your oldest is 28 and then
Oh,
10 or
yeah.
18. So
Yeah. Are you asking me to math right now?
No. We
You're
went
good.
to
I
the
already
same
math.
school. Why would I ask you that?
I was good at math. I don't want to do it anymore.
I always hated math, but I was good at it. I
Yeah.
just never liked it.
Oh, I love it. I loved it then, but
I've never been math. I'm horrible with math.
You've never been math.
never been math.
you were the
Jesse's really
character
feeling
at school. You were the character.
A little bit.
Yeah. Charismatic and energetic, enthusiastic. Yeah.
Cocaine will
Always had a
definitely do
smile.
that.
Smiles with his face and his eyes.
Yeah, my eyes.
Yep.
It's over there because that's how I was like, yeah, guys, it's not just because I smoke cannabis.
Yeah, because back then I don't think you were.
No, my eyes are
No.
slanted though. Anyways, like I was telling you about my friend Danny who passed away,
Yeah.
and I'll show you a picture later on because it's funny as we look almost identical. The only reason why we look different is because he's a little bit taller than me and a little bit better looking, and so he was like every time we go out, people are like, "Hey, who's this guy?" And they go, "He's my brother." And they go, "Oh yeah, you guys look alike." And they're like, "Okay, cool." And I had like the worst pigeon accent. We'd go out. He was from Hawaii,
Yeah.
and so he had a pretty good pigeon accent. But then when he would teach me that, and we'd go out, it was so bad. But it got us out of when we were drunk in Boise. Sorry, somebody corrected me at the funeral. It's not Boise. It's Boise.
Oh,
I'm like,
all right.
tomato.
I mean, it's like going out knocking doors in Kentucky, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's Louisville," because coming from Utah. Hi, out in Louisville. What?
Hey, Louisville.
Yeah, it's
I'm sorry, what?
it's Louisville.
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 That's kind of like,
Yeah.
what? No, I'm not gonna share that joke. Anyways, I had to hurry and pause that because I'm like, and everybody's like, dude, come on, fucking say it. Like,
Is it another Bodaggett moment?
dude, that was so funny. Brandon drops this clip of us in our podcast, and all I was doing was I was talking about I don't always clean my bong before going over there, and he goes, yeah, and
I was like, "Oh, wipe your ass before you come to class," and he's like, "Yeah, I
Oh,
don't always
yeah.
wipe my
You're
ass."
saying-
yeah, I said, I don't always wipe my ass. And he's like, oh. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't give a shit. Just do it. Bodaggets and all. And he just goes, ugh. And he puts that clip online and just that with no context.
Not the whole bong part.
No.
Literally just the like.
Just,
I don't wipe my ass sometimes.
That's
And
nasty,
there's a
Jesse. Come
comment,
on.
and there the guy goes, "What the fuck? Get him off your couch, dude.
Right?
That
Yeah.
guy's so disrespectful." And I was like,
Hilarious.
"That guy who made that comment was really high." He's like, "No, dude, that's not cool."
Right? Oh, for sure. Because it was like, oh, that's gross.
Right.
Right? I don't think about. I mean, I know there's people out there that do stupid shit when they do a lot of cannabis, but I just don't see myself being like wanting to get into some shit. I just want to be like chill. I just want to relax. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, let's go start a fight. That's why drinking is no longer a part of my life. But
Just makes you want to fight more.
yeah.
I just don't like the way it makes me feel. Especially like even
I didn't
even
like
with,
who I was waking
scotch.
up next to because my
Yeah, I can
my
see that.
quality of women started to grade. I literally lived the Ranger credo. When a woman's standards are lower than yours, lower your standards. So just keep dropping it, and it got bad, and I'm just like, I got to take a break of this. This is horrible. And then after I did like a year sabbatical of no dating, no sex, no nothing, I met my wife
There you go.
Nice.
and worked out,
There
and
you
she's
go.
put up with
Nice.
me this whole time.
Been together for ages.
Yeah,
Aw.
almost 22 years. We've
a
been
long
married for
time.
19, going on 20.
That's an accomplishment.
Yeah.
It's pretty
right?
good. My sister Melissa's still married to this day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she's 25 years.
Damn.
No, yes, 25. Because her daughter's 25. So, yeah. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lauren, she's gorgeous. She's just adorable. And she has her son, Jackson. He's 22.
Okay.
He's still living at home.
Yeah.
But he's a good kid. He's such a good kid. And then she adopted Janice's son.
Okay.
And then her youngest, Christian, who doesn't look like the rest of them.
Wow.
And he's incredibly
What are you saying,
intelligent.
Jesse?
He's the mailman's kid.
Yeah, I'm just like, that shit doesn't vibe. No, but my sister still looks amazing. She let
Yeah.
her hair go platinum, and she still looks amazing. Just like,
Yeah.
she's like, I don't know, just doing things with it. I'm like, sure. But, anyways, no, the reason why going through all that, I mean, you have lived such a full life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hard, but full.
Yeah.
Right? And you've grown a lot in many ways. And you were sharing things with me that you could just feel, right? And there's this thing, like in the shape system, octagons are almost telepathic in certain ways. And it's really, really weird. Because when you meet others that are like that, you know immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So then I start asking questions. Hey, how are you about showing up on time? They go, I'm the worst. I'm like, hey, let's talk.
Right.
Jess is like, we should be friends.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. You know,
Let's
the
be
only
irresponsible together.
Yeah, I don't even consider it irresponsible. You know,
He doesn't even consider it irresponsible.
no, I don't, you know, because but
Rebel.
Brandon's really about timekeeping because
I am very prompt.
Yeah.
On time.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. And because of I've learned that about him and his shape and all this other stuff, and I'll tell you more about that. But his shape, I actually know that, so I am very cognizant of it now, and it gives me feelings of absolute guilt before it happens to remind me that I will get it done. Okay. And that's what I've told a lot of people. I trained some women salespeople, and both have made ADHD. And I'm like, cool, we're going to implement a cool new program. And they're like, what's that? And I'm like, you're going to write down 5 things on your calendar that will be done today. And you have to get it done by 5.
Oh, wow.
And you can't take it home with you. You got to get it done at the office. And they're
How
like,
did it go?
really good because they were guilty.
See, I would have had that shit done by like 9:30 in the morning.
But he's
and then been like, all right, now
he's
what?
pragmatic.
Yeah.
He's very pragmatic. And that's what I love about this guy because I am not. I'm ideas
Right.
constantly coming in.
Last night I got bored and I don't code. I've never coded. I'm not a coder. I know nothing about it.
That's pretty cool.
But I decided to figure out how to code and design an entire thing that I had no, like, it took a few hours and I worked with it, but it is a fully working program that,
Yeah.
and I was like,
Nice.
That's what he does when he's bored.
all right. Yeah, because I was like, I already raced with Jesse today. I don't want to sit down and race some more.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling like reading a book yet. I don't want to watch a show. Like,
Just coding for fun.
yeah, I was like, yeah, well, my mind, when it gets bored, I spent like, in the evenings after, you know, my kids had gone to bed and stuff, 40 hours in 1 week just studying law because that was what piqued my interest in that 90 days. And so I just studied all of this law stuff for the longest time, but it was only at night when I was bored and had free time.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, my mind is just on drugs, probably.
Inquisitive.
Yeah, call it that.
Yeah.
Inquisitive.
We're
yeah.
saying it nicely.
Inquisitive, yeah.
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 But no, I you know, knowing that about you, and if you're comfortable in going into it, kind of share that about you, what this energy that you have, and where you've kind of taken your life to this point. Because I just get this really strong feeling. That's why I was just like when we were talking, and I said, and I don't just do this to anybody, you know. We're not like that. We don't just go, oh man, I met this cool guy at the grocery store. Say, hey man, why don't you come on the pod? Right?
Yeah.
No, but it was just a strong pull.
Yeah.
And Brandon knows it because I'm like, we got to bring her on. We got to bring her on. And here you are. So let's go into it.
Okay. So how do I say this exactly?
Worcestershire? Worcestershire?
Worcestershire sauce.
Wash your sister's sauce.
Wash your sister. Now we're in Alabama.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, go ahead and tell us. Don't want to put too much pressure on you. Definitely not. But
I'm pretty open, so if you ask me questions, we'll
Yeah.
just
Specific
go there.
questions.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know that about me. I've
Of
always been
course.
pretty
So since
open.
you know more of it, maybe give her a prompter, and then I can see if I can find a question out of that, because you know.
Roger that. When did you start feeling that you had this special connection?
I knew you were going to ask me that. That's actually where it's going to go. See?
Yeah.
Vibing.
Yeah.
So
On air? Are we allowed to do that?
you get it. So anyway,
Not vibrating.
vibing.
Vibing.
Mindset,
Yeah, some
telepathic. You're a hard ass. We're in a different place than you are right now. I don't know where you're at, but we're going to bring you in. Let's go.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay, so I grew up like a very like spiritual person, and I experienced a lot of things that were supernatural, or I would see dead people and spirits and dark things and light things and everything in between. I could see people's like auras, their colors around them. I have 1 foot in the spirit realm and 1 foot in this realm at all times. And I've always experienced that. And I'm incredibly empathic, which is really, really challenging. It's like having that open sixth sense 24/7. And it's something I've been used to my whole life. But since other people are still in the process of like trusting that part of themselves or just ignoring it, it was hard for me to navigate through life relating to other people. So it's been like a really big growth process for me to have to like learn to navigate through life, having this part of me that's very spiritual and this other part of me that's like trying to be human when I feel so not human. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like this has all taken place before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a very strong recollection of past lives, many of them. Wow. I have a lot I could say.
That's really interesting. Is it Untethered Soul? There's a book that I read on that, and it talked about people who experience multiple lives, or they've gone through even specific therapies where even if they don't remember those past
Like
lives, it'll open up
hypnosis
Yeah.
and things like that.
access to certain previous lives, but then potentially not every person has experienced as many past lives as others.
Yeah, it's different. There's like young souls and old souls.
Do you know a lot of people like you?
I know more than I did before. We're kind of spread throughout the planet, strategically, of course. And I feel like, I guess I should start on like how I view the creator, because I feel like that would kind of create like a foundation for like how I think or how I see all of these things that you're asking. So I've had visions and experiences since I was young, to the point where it's like I saw how the universe was created and why and what that all entailed. And I have regular visions of things that did happen, are happening, and or will happen, or have the potentiality of happening. And so I've been giving these kinds of things in order for me to understand my mission here, or my purpose here. And there's a lot of people that are kind of in the same boat as me, and we're kind of like quiet because we don't really fit in, right? But just to bring back to the creator is like, I see everything as like there's a source creator, and to me it looks like a gigantic sun, like this is huge sun, and with each ray that comes off of the sun is its own universe, is its own form of creation. And we happen to be in a universe that's a spiral universe, is what I saw. And that's because of how this universe was created, because each universe has different laws to it. And the way it was created was with sound, tone, color, and mathematics and sacred geometry. It would show patterns. So if you know anything about like cymatics, where people put salt on like a platform where they play vibration, it creates like
The fractal patterns and stuff.
And it looks very similar to mandalas, and you can see these old ancient chapels over in like mostly Europe and those kinds of things, where they've got these beautiful stained glass windows where it has beautiful patterns. Those are basically like the blueprint to consciousness and creation. Is supposed to ignite the subconscious aspect of us to help us to remember who we are and where we came from, kind of a thing. That's why churches back then used to be sacred, even though they're not that way anymore.
Yeah. Well, and they were built on ley lines, and
Exactly.
a lot of them have, like you said, built around sound. So a lot of them, even the cathedrals I love, like in Europe, and that,
Yeah.
they are built
Gorgeous.
specific with dimensions, so you can
Yes.
hear like and the sounds of like choirs and that are meant to reverberate, and like
Yep.
just incredible architecture that you just don't see
Yep.
to
There you go.
like anymore.
And each of these churches used to have either like organs or different kind of sound frequency thing. Do you want to hear this thing that blew my mind that I saw maybe 2 or 3 years ago?
Yes.
That You sure?
Yes.
Okay. I saw the Colosseum in Rome, and I saw that its original creation was so that people could gather there. It's on a nodal point, which is part of that ley line, where it has a strong convergence of energies from the inner earth, from like the earth's surface, as well as certain quadrants of the universe, which play a strong role in emitting certain levels of consciousness.
Interesting.
And I saw that they originally were used to kind of collectively help people vibrate in consciousness at the same level together, like a community.
Yeah.
And that they would play certain instruments, either bells. I can't remember what they used, but it was some kind of a sound. It made a sound and it reverberated through everybody in the entire Colosseum. And we were a lot larger than we are now as humans. We were like giants, you could say. And then since our bodies are majority of it's like structured with water, and what's in water is there's plasma, and then we have like minerals which hold light codes, which hold consciousness. And so if I don't know if you're familiar with Emoto, I forget his name. Mm-hmm. He's that guy that took water and froze it with a specific word on the outside of.
Yeah, and played different music
Yes,
and spoke to it. Is it The
put
Way of
certain
Water?
words.
Or the
It is.
I've read the book. I think it's maybe called The Way of Water.
I think so too. And each picture that he took of the frozen water held a beautiful geometric structure.
Wow.
Yeah.
That looked like a snowflake.
Oh, yes, I've seen this. Okay, yes. Okay.
Yeah. And so they had some waters that were frozen that had like disdain or hatred or things like
Negative
that.
energies.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's all based off of the person writing the word, what their intention is when they write the word and put it.
Frequency.
Yeah, because if you're saying the word hate, but you're all cheerful and you're writing the word and you're like, I'm just going to pretend like we're putting this word on here and it's going to make
the
this
energy
weird.
and the frequency.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it just shows how powerful we are as people, as humans. It's our consciousness that creates in this world, and it manifests in water in our consciousness. So if we're in a Colosseum receiving all this higher vibrational consciousness, it's going to reverberate through our bodies, and we're all going to be on the same page. And if you look at the way our world is today, everything is about division, and everybody has an opinion about everything, all of us. Well, except for me, of course.
There's no we. Yeah.
I'm the only one.
You have no opinions?
No, meaning like I don't know how to say it.
It's okay.
In other words, it's like our consciousness were in the same place during those periods that we existed in this place. Okay. And now it's just completely divided. Intentionally, right?
Yeah.
That's how they control us. That's how they shift us from believing a certain way of being self-empowered to fighting each other. Because if we fight each other, then we're not going to know who the real quote-unquote enemy is.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you do sound baths?
I used to a long time ago, but I don't very much anymore.
No?
Mm-mm.
Just time?
I mean,
or
it's
you
a
don't
good idea.
enjoy them? Like, I mean, sure you enjoy them still, just life got in the way?
Well, that's what I was going to say. It would be really good for me in the sense that I'm very empathic, like extremely empathic, where I will be in a room with people, and if you guys are high, I'll get high without It's not the smoke I'm breathing. It's like I'll be in your energy field and I can feel it. Or I remember things like I'd sit down on the couch next to my son when he was going through like a growth spurt, and I could feel his legs, his knees were hurting because he was going through a growth spurt. This kid is like six foot tall right now, and so he grew really fast at a younger age. And I'd sit next to him and I'd be like, son, are your legs hurting? And he's like, yeah, I have some leg aches today. And I'd run into the kitchen and give him some calcium, magnesium, vitamin D. But it's that kind of thing where I could pick up on physically what's going on with a person, but also energetically. And I guess I didn't say this either, but I'm a practicing psychic, medium, intuitive, empathic, do astrology readings and that type of thing. So I know people's thoughts and feelings. And it's not perfect. Everyone's like, well, why don't you just win the freaking lotto if you know everything? It's not exactly like that. It's like what's most important for you to receive from the spirit realm is what you'll receive about yourself, about other people. And I'm here as a human. I'm not supposed to know everything. None of us are. And the purpose is to experience it, not to have all the answers. No one's any more important or special than anyone else. It's like we're all here
We're passengers.
Yeah, and we're all part of the same creator. We're all part of source creators.
Yeah, if we are all source, we are equal.
Yeah.
So if I'm source, you're source, you're source, the only difference between us is literally the outside projection of what this color of source is. And it's like, well, it's the same shit.
Yeah.
Exact same stuff.
And that's why I have a hard time, like, judging people for where they are anymore. One, because I've not been a perfect human. Mostly perfect,
what is
of course,
that, though?
But no.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's almost like, oh, don't go to the desert because it's perfect. We can't ruin
you know
it.
what happens?
Yeah.
Like,
Because it moves. It's in constant flux.
it's like you said, though, you've grown and changed and learned through life. Like the person that I was 15 years ago is nowhere near the same person I am today.
Country Brandon is no more.
Oh God! But even before that, like any of the other versions of Brandon, like
Dude, that was like that picture you showed on like, you look so young.
Oh yeah, I thought about it. So Addie was born. I was snipped then, so I was at least 25, probably 26.
So he looks like he's 12.
In that, and so
well, the rest of his brothers and his dad too. His dad totally
my dad's
could pass
62,
62, and he could totally pass for 39 or 41. Easy.
When he was 45, he was buying paintball guns because we were going to go paintballing, and we went to the store, and they ID'd him for 18. I was 15. And my dad didn't have me at 16. He was probably 23 when I was born, 24.
Yeah.
So I was like, he's like in his 40s. What are you talking about? He's old as shit.
Yeah.
Because, you know.
Old as shit.
Smart ass 14-year-old, 15-year-old me. Like, yeah, well, I call him Old Man River. It's either Padre or Old Man River. That's what I call him.
Those are good names.
I just call him Old Man. See, that's so funny you call him Padre. I mean, I don't even call my own father Padre. You know, my dad, when I got back from the military, I didn't even know he had an accent.
Really?
I had no clue, and I'm like, what the fuck's up with that?
Because you're used to
hilarious.
how you talked when you were young. You go away and you come back and it's different.
Yeah, because I've been away for so long.
Wow.
And hey, how are you doing?
Oh, that's hilarious.
Why do you have an accent? Everybody goes, yeah, your dad's always had an accent. I'm like,
Yeah, I can actually relate to that. I moved away to Hawaii for several years, and I came back. My sister picked me up, and I'm like, you sound like a hick. No judgment against hicks, guys. We still love you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talk in that accent every once in a while. So.
yeah, I mean,
it's fun.
You know,
reference Spanish Fork.
Actually, you get a lot of help from other people if you speak like this. I mean, I've had a lot of good things.
Yeah. She used to say like mountain.
Mountain.
Yeah, mountain. And she just talks like very different. And like you said, your friend Danny or Dan, he's Hawaiian. He has a really strong pidgin. You pick it up so easily when you go to Hawaii. You're like, wow.
Yeah.
It's like a different
I'm an accent sponge,
dialect.
so every country that I go
Me
to,
too.
it's horrible. I was in Italy, and then I was like, I had an Italian accent, and I'm like, and my ex-wife and my family are like, why are you doing that? I'm like, doing what?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you're talking. I'm like, I'm sorry. We've been here for 2 weeks now. Like, same with London, same with, like, it was everywhere we went. It's just been that way. And I'm like, It's
Yeah.
not intentional. It just
That
kind of
happened.
comes out, and then I'm like,
That's so true.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
mocking you at all. It
No,
just-
no, it's like when I was in Mumbai, I started talking like this, and then everybody's like, "What? No, your skin is not matching your accent, my friend.
oh yeah.
Don't do that."
I feel like
The head shake
when you
and
do that one
everything.
after a bit, though, it becomes really easy.
I told you I had this.
love that one.
I had a friend at the hospital that I worked with named Dr. Rashans, and he came there. We had this big takedown of this guy. He was like 6'9", half Tongan, half Hawaiian, and we gave him meds, and we had to put 2 handcuffs behind his back, and we put him in a cell. And the doctor goes, "Go ahead, let him take off the handcuffs. Give him
You're like,
a
yeah,
shot
no.
of Benadryl 25." And we're like,
Benadryl.
and then the security guard starts going over there because I ran that word, and I go, "Stand fast. You're not touching those cuffs." Nope. I said, "You want to do it?" I said, "Give him the key. You do it, doc." And he's like, "No, I tell you what you do. You're going to do it for me right now." And I was like, "Nope. No one's going to do it. No one's following his order. You're not going to put us in
Wow.
danger."
So what happened?
I had to go to anger management in St. George for
Wait.
7 hours.
Are you saying you took off the cuffs?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I told him, I said, "If you want to do it, you give him the shot."
yeah.
And I said, "Guess what's going to happen when you do that?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "He'll calm down." And I said, "Really? Eric, you going to calm down? I'm going to cut your fucking head off." Yeah, Benadryl's going to do real good.
Right.
We already gave him a bunch of meds. It wasn't touching him. And I said, "What can I do for you,
You
man?"
got to give him the horse tranquilizer.
Oh,
Yeah.
we used to use this thing called a napsine,
Yeah.
where if you gave it to him, instantly, you'd be out.
Wow.
And then they had to watch your pulse and your breathing. But I mean, we would have guys so angry there was nothing you could, and even this stuff. When the psychosis was so strong,
Yeah.
it would they were impervious to anything.
Right. See, and I think I've seen that those kind of people are possessed.
Yes, I was
and
about
it makes
to
them
say that.
stronger
Well,
physically.
It's like certain people who have schizophrenia. My theory is that their consciousness is it's just bouncing back and forth from different dimensions,
Yeah.
and so they can't. That's why they're hearing things constantly, like, and that's why they can never really fixate, and that's why
Yeah.
the term insane, because
Yep.
you can't. It's just constantly, because when you talk to them, it's real. And I work with schizophrenics for a long time,
Right.
and I'm just like, I can't tell them it's not. Like one of them, sweet guy, taught me how to play pool with one hand. He was the coolest guy.
He
and
had one hand, or he taught you how to play.
he
pool
taught me how to
just using
play with
one
just
hand?
using one hand.
That's
Because he was so
Right.
bored. He had lived there at the state hospital for so many years for murder. Killed his father. His father tortured him all through his childhood.
Oh, wow.
Ripped his fingernails,
Ooh.
toenails out, tied him to the bed, put an
Jesus.
iron. He put it on the stove, one of those old irons.
So
and
he
then-
got what was coming to him.
Yeah, his dad owned a hardware shop up in Salt Lake. And closing at one day, his son he was like, I think he was 18.
Yeah.
And he said the voices were really strong and told me what I needed to do.
Wow.
So he picked up a 25-pound rock, and there was nothing left of his head. He called the cops. And
So
I
this
said,
is what I did.
I mean, if you grow up traumatized, if you're tortured as a kid, that's what causes DID too.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell me how you say it. What is DID?
Associative something disorder. I can't think of the middle one, but
Yeah.
it's
Yep. It's basically where, and I have a family member that's schizophrenic, so I totally understand.
Yeah. It's
And she's been that way for years. So.
yeah. And there's the craziest thing is that sometimes it just takes like an adjustment. I worked with one doctor who was an amazing woman
Yeah.
and very tortured person. And that's why I was
Yeah.
like, oh, she's going to be a good doc. Because usually the ones who have had the most tragic lives are the most, I mean, they are so good. But this one case we had, it was a woman, highly, highly religious. She tried to assault one of the presidents of the church at the time. And she had what's called a Tarasoff on her. It's like
Is that a weapon?
it's a hardcore restraining order.
oh,
Yeah, that will be enforced.
Wow.
And it happened when she started serving her mission. She started to start talking to things that weren't there, and all these other things were going on, right? So she was having a difficult time. Most peculiar thing is you can get a piece of paper, and she would write this perfect penmanship from the very tip of that corner in tiny little letters, and she would fill up pages.
Wow.
And it was always perfect lines.
Mm-hmm.
And they started treating her for schizophrenia. So they started
Mhm.
giving her all these meds, started making her angry. They switched it to another one, made her hypersexual. She tried to lure a lot of my staff into her room. She's like, hey, and we're like,
Yeah.
so what's going on? I'm like, it's the meds. And then the doc did this whole like huge deep study
Mm-hmm.
and found out that she was suffering from a rare form of epilepsy.
Mm-hmm.
Gave her an epileptic seizure medication.
And she was
Within
fine.
2 weeks, she was completely lucid.
Different. Wow.
And she's like, and she had lived in this prison for years. And as I think there's an imbalance, and it doesn't always need a medication on that one. But as you said, our lives are divided now,
Mhm.
and that's where a lot of these illnesses start to come from.
Right.
And that's where a lot of this mental illness starts to come or whatever, because
Mhm.
it's just the
Yeah.
vibrations, the frequency of the world is just dark.
Yeah. It's very negative.
Yeah, it's very polarized right now. There's like extreme dark and extreme light.
Yep.
Which is clashing.
Mhm.
And it's manifesting in people, and it ultimately manifests in our individual lives as like a daily choice. So if you know about the Hopi, I don't know if it's Hopi, but it's basically a old Native American like story where they talk about the dark wolf and the light wolf. Have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I'll tell it briefly. It's basically where they say like whoever you have two wolves that live inside of you, and whichever one you feed is going to be the stronger one. And so if you feed your dark wolf, you have more of the energy put into that, and that becomes like the most prominent aspect of how you experience life, how you view things, your perspective, how you
Darker
act,
energy.
everything. How you do things physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally in this life. If you feed your white wolf, then you'll gravitate towards being more friendly, kind. But the thing about this story, even though, and I'm going to just add my own conjecture to this too, is like, it's ideal to have balance, because there is darkness in this world. And if you do not understand it, it can target you, right?
And devour you. And
Mm-hmm. So what you want to do is you want to almost embrace your dark side, not as something to act on per se. I mean, sometimes maybe that's a stage you go through,
yeah.
which is just a necessary stage for your growth, right? But then you alchemize it and transmute it, and you say like, I'm no longer going to, for you, just like, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm not going to end up in a bed with somebody I don't feel like is a good person anymore. It's that kind of thing, is like you take those experiences that you've gone into that darkness and you transmute it and alchemize it into being a better version of yourself and being like, I don't really want to do that. So you're feeding more of your white wolf, and you're having to release the addictive substances and energy that feeds that dark wolf in you. You stop drinking, you stop doing all those things that keeps you in that space. So if you're too white wolf kind, then you're too cowardice. You're too naive. You're too prim and proper, where you feel like you can't take on the world. And if somebody comes to challenge you, then you don't have anything in your tool belt to know how to offset it. So Yeshua used to talk about this. Yeshua, as in Jesus, used to talk about this, and he used to talk about following the middle way, which is essentially like learning to transmute the darkness within you in order and merge it with the light within you to become the powerful being that you're meant to be. And that's like the hero's story, or the hero's, remind me what it's called.
Hero's journey.
There you go. Hero's
Yeah.
journey.
Because
Yeah.
there's love and light in everyone, but there's also
Mhm.
darkness. And
Yeah.
So to be a gray wolf.
There you go.
Well,
That
You
is
gotta ride the
interesting.
line.
Oh, that blows my mind, because I have a really strong connection to animals as well. And
So do I.
I see animal spirits sometimes coming to me. And for the last month, I've seen a gray wolf. And you just said it. Now I understand it.
That's so crazy.
And it was the male alpha version of the gray wolf, which means that's his way of saying, you are in the process, he's communicating with me. You are in the process of attaining that level of having merged your two worlds together to attain that level of like being that alpha part of myself. And then just like the mountain that we're climbing as humans, we reach a plateau where we're like, we accomplished this, good job. And then there's always going to be another level to climb up to. But meanwhile, you just are proud of yourself for what you accomplished then. So, yeah, getting there. And it's like a process going there.
Oh, my gosh.
There's so many things I was going to say, too, when you were talking. And shoot, I forget.
Cannabis.
No,
Damn
I like
marijuana.
Well, I thought about it and I was like, it's even kind of like parenting and leaving that angrier, reactive more side of us and still knowing, hey, there is that darkness inside of me. There is there is that side, that beast, that wolf that's still there, but it's knowing how to manage that and not leading with that, going, hey, this is what I'm going to go. Because you're like, well, there are both wolves.
Right.
But if you're there controlling both wolves, well, if you know how to lead with one, sometimes, you have another dark wolf that comes out and you have to let your dark wolf out and go, get the fuck away.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, your energy is gross. I don't like you. I don't need this shit. Like, go find something else.
See, I grew up in again, like my dad didn't know how to control his anger and he was very violent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like how our generation grew up it's like...
That's just how it went.
Yeah.
You got the belt and things like that. Yeah.
Right. And there's different levels of it. Like, sometimes it went too far where it's okay, you're disciplining me. I get it, but does it have to go that far? So
Yeah.
And being the sensitive person that I was, I'm like, I'm literally not doing anything. I'm just a really good kid. And yet he just didn't know how to manage his anger, and his way of disciplining us as kids and is telling us what to do in the way that he did. But I will tell you this, like, people can have a resentment for their parents being a specific way. I could label my mom as a white wolf, but I also can see that she's very weak in not facing her life or having courage to achieve being a better version of herself. And she's kind of given up, and it's affected her physically, and in every other way she's been depressed. And with my dad, he's been so not knowing how to manage his anger and his frustration, his emotions, that it's like I witnessed firsthand a white wolf and a dark wolf in my life to understand it. And there's a part of me that's like so compassionate and so loving, genuinely, literally feeling what other people are feeling and going through, as if I am them, as if I have their memories. I know what it's like to feel if they've had a baby die. Or I've done readings for years, and every single time I did a reading, it's like I turned into the person, and I was in the process of like having to transmute, and it would take me an entire month just to process what other people were coming to me to get advice about. It was really hard. I had to stop doing that. I was really successful at it in the sense that it worked and it was really benefiting a lot of people, but it became really hard on me, and it affected me physically and in other ways. So, but anyway, now I'm to the point where I just had really challenging relationships, 2 of them in particular. And me and my ex just split up last year. And what I learned from that experience, with him being the way that he was and me being the way that I am, is that I took responsibility for my part of it. I'm like, how did I create the dysfunction in this? And it was, I was too much of a people pleaser, or I was too much of a, like, not just kind of letting him get away with the stuff that he was doing.
Yeah.
And I knew why, and I understood why he was doing what he was doing, but it didn't make it okay, right? To the point where I'm like, well, I can't do this anymore. And I started pulling out my dark wolf and was like laying down the law. I was like, screw that. I can't do that. So now I feel more balanced, where I feel like I will love a person so wholeheartedly, bend over backwards for them, if I feel like it's what I'm supposed to do for their benefit, for my benefit, both. But once they cross me, I'm like, fuck you. No, like, it's not happening. I love you, but I can't deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
So I've kind of encountered the last year of not being with him. I've encountered a lot of men coming into my life where I'm being, how should I say this? I feel like I'm testing, or I'm challenging myself, where I'm seeing, okay, are you going to go with this old pattern in this new person? Are you recognizing the same patterns, or are you going to like create a boundary there? And so I feel like this is kind of what we're collectively doing as humans, is we're starting to balance the masculine, dark wolf, and the feminine, the white wolf, in our collective energy right now, in our collective conscious that we're all tapped into in a higher subconscious level. And so creating that balance heals our ancestral line, heals our DNA. It creates unification inside of us, which creates connections with us externally. It becomes an outward projection of like what we experience into our reality if we are co-creators with the creation that we exist in. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you read a lot of Alan Watts or listened to a lot of Alan Watts?
I have. The interesting thing about, how do I say this? I really value deeply, and I've learned a lot from a lot of teachers that have come into this world. I feel like a majority of what I've received comes from
Source.
Thank you for saying that. That actually is exactly it. Where, like, it feels like my life has been directed in such a way that has been my purpose. Is like, that's my North Star.
So you've lived it sounds like you've just been intuitive, like had intuition throughout your whole life. There is, oh gosh, it's on Mind Valley, Vision Luciani. He's redone Silva Mastermind. It was Jose Silva taught his kids how to be more intuitive and stuff.
Yeah.
They learned faster. They were like able to feel energies and stuff. And it's a whole course that they've taught to be more in tune with that, because it is just, some humans are naturally more in tune. Some feel that, they gravitate towards that. And then there are others who like, they shun that, or like it's something they're not tuned to.
Yeah. I have heard of that.
But it sounds like yours was just like one of the natural all done on your own.
Right. And I think I know the reason why that is because I know about myself that I'm an old soul. I've existed for a very, very long time. There's a good chunk of us here on the planet that are, and I hate the sound of that in the sense that I struggle with the ranking or the like
hierarchical.
Being an old soul doesn't mean you're more important than a young soul. What
but that's
it is
only in our society. I
Right,
think that
that's
it's
what
like
I'm
the
trying to
elderly
say.
are like, they're, hey, you need to respect me. Well, but why shouldn't you respect the same young person or anyone else? Like, it's
well, they also
consciousness,
have to earn it. If they're like a little 2-year-old tantrum throwing, like immature, then you're gonna be like,
you have to learn maturity, even in this world.
Which, as an old soul, I had to go through that stage too, just like anybody else. But you can't look at like graduate from the most prestigious school or college in the United States or anywhere on the planet, and then look at a kindergarten person or kid and then just be like, this person is better than this person.
They just have difference of knowledge.
They both have difference of experience, difference of knowledge. Not that going to college, by the way, is the only way to learn. Let's just establish that.
Or acquire knowledge.
We all know that it can be very corrupt. And I know you guys are on the same page.
We are both attendees. We're just not college graduates.
No. I actually was talked out of it by professors saying, get out of here. You're not going to do good
I
here.
would have to agree.
I enjoyed my time because what it did teach me was it teached me to be, because I didn't consider myself anywhere near an intelligent kid.
Right.
I was in all the resource classes because I never paid attention.
Me too.
I thought I never could do anything. And then I went to college and I maintained a 3.40.
Right.
And I'm like, how is that going to happen? And I played video games the entire time.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, how did you play video games, have a family, work full time, and go to school? And I'm like, you just do.
Jesse, it's because you're an indigo like me. Like, that's how we are very connected.
Well, when you were saying about feeling other people, like, I always thought I was psychosomatic, but I mean, and that's why I kept going back to this, because I was getting it. I mean, I'm seeing your aura, which is crazy in one sense, but it's like an unlocking, because I feel that.
Yeah.
When my kids have a sore throat, my throat hurts.
Yeah.
When they
That's
have
how
a pain somewhere, I'm like, why is that hurting right now?
Right.
And I've noticed that more. So when my kids are not doing okay because I've opened up, I've been feeding my white wolf
Yeah.
as well as my black. Right? So I'm finding myself as a gray wolf. I've got this killer idea now for my tattoo. But yeah, this is awesome. But I'm able to now be more connected to my sons in a deeper way, where I know something's wrong, and I know that around people.
Yeah.
I know when they're upset. I know when they're, and I thought, oh, it's because I put all this time into learning how to communicate. And yeah, that's part of it, but it's mostly just that, because I've always felt that. I always knew my relationships were about to end before they ended.
Right.
I was like, fuck,
You
it's
were
coming.
that way when you were young.
Yeah.
And I think you really intellectualized it back then, like you're saying now.
Yeah.
And you harvested a lot of that energy into like your physical body.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Just being active, which is kind of what I did too. I feel like
Yeah.
it was part of the transmutation process. It was me being very athletic. I could run for 8 miles a day and be like, I need to keep going.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I was just very
it's
athletic.
Like the nature of it. An empath is to be like, need to burn that energy off that you're kind of absorbing from everybody.
Well, it becomes toxic if you can't.
It does, especially like EMFs now, right?
Oh my, I was just telling my wife that, like, I had to get to the gym.
Yeah.
I had to get to the gym to burn off this extra
Right.
darkness is the best way to say it. And because,
Yeah.
and my wife's like, you're kind of being a dick to me right now at the gym. I'm like, I apologize. Let's just keep moving.
Yeah.
And we got past it, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And and that explains a lot.
Right.
Because I look at other people, I'm like, why don't you want to go do that?
Right.
And they're like,
Yeah, but not everybody is like you, and I'm not trying to toot your own horn or whatever that looks like, but as far as like how long I've known you and just being able to energetically,
I'm
intuitively
there
tap into
right
you,
now. Yeah.
right. I know I can feel that. It's
Yeah,
actually
me too.
making my like face tingle a little bit.
Yeah, I feel it right here in my chest.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
This is fucking nuts.
I know. Yay. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah,
Making a little
but
trouble over here.
no, it's just it's something that's there because Brandon feels it too.
Yeah.
Like we know when each other is not feeling okay, and we'll randomly send each other a text to say, "Hey, buddy, keep it up."
Nice.
But we do it. It's not like an
Yeah.
everyday thing, And Brandon's the first guy that I told that I love you, man.
Yeah.
And he said it right back. He's like, I love you too. And I was just like, this has been the key to unlocking all my happiness.
Right?
And from that point on, it has been nothing but continuous growth.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying growth by financial means, by any mean. The struggle is real,
That
right?
is
Yeah.
personal growth.
But personal growth is, Brandon knew me completely different before.
Yeah.
I was a very aggressive.
Yeah. You needed to go through that
Reactive.
stage.
Yeah. Like my Black Wolf it ran the show.
Which it needed to in order for you to integrate it. That
Yeah.
was very much a part of your... People always ask me like, hey, I want a reading. Can you tell me what my life purpose is? And I'm like, you're in it. You're living it. Whatever you're going through, that's your life purpose.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to be in alignment with who you would like to be, recognizing you're not, in a place you want to stay and you're feeling uncomfortable and you're feeling that tug towards like, okay, it's my next stage of growth, then like that's prevalently like at the surface where you need to say, okay, what do I need to do to adjust my life? And you evaluate things internally and externally, But what was I going to say? I was going to say one other thing. I have like, the way my mind works is like, I don't know if anybody's listening to us, probably not right now, but I almost can feel people listening to us in the future now. And I can feel all these thoughts and feelings that people are experiencing. And it's kind of sometimes like throwing me off a little bit, but to the point where it's like, well, what about this? And then I'll start talking about what they're thinking about. Do you understand?
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like you guys do that. Oh, I see chills, full body chills. You guys do that on your podcast where you're in the zone and your thoughts are their thoughts at the same time.
Yeah.
And maybe not with everybody, but a lot of your audience.
We've
I
gotten
can
a
see
lot
that.
of our audience has done that with us.
I
Has
can
shown
hear
they're
everybody,
more
or
opening.
maybe not everybody, but a lot of people being like, hell yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like me not wiping my ass. Remember that?
Oh, good God. Jesse, do you need to take a break?
We just had such a good random conversation, I think, those few episodes, that I was like, yeah, these have just such funny clips in there.
No, but I get it.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is that sometimes people want to feel like they're insane because they do that, because that's not
we get insane to some degree in our lives.
Oh, we're all insane. You know, there's just some who get caught.
When we're in our dark, for sure, we get there.
That's what I used to tell the patients there, because this guy came to me and he goes, Jess, am I crazy? I'm like, well, yeah, but we all are. You just got caught. And he goes, makes sense. I'm like, because seriously, you know, we all talk to ourselves. We all battle in our own mind. We hear the voices and the interactions. Some of us, not all of us, some of us see everything as it was. Those of us like you and I, our memories are insanely impeccable. But it's for a reason.
Right.
And others go, well, there's no way. I mean, but it was not, it was harvested inside, like literally. This plant opened that up to me.
Yeah.
Like Brandon opened me to a different world, and I use it as just a conduit. It's not like when I used to drink.
Yeah.
I drank for a purpose, either to get laid or to get in a fight.
Yeah.
Hoping one or the other.
Yeah. You needed some kind of stimulation.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
That's why I bounced around a lot.
Sure.
But when I found my white wolf,
Yeah.
like, and she's not just white. She needed to be pulled over into the black, and that's exactly what I did for her.
Yeah.
Like, you know, she grew up extremely sheltered. She used to say stuff like, "Oh, well, yes, you know, all these people have been praying, and the rain's coming." I'm like, "What?" And she goes, "Yeah," and I'm like, "No, that's the atmosphere. It just does its own.
It's not
It's its own entity."
You're more logical. She's more spiritual.
Yeah, and then she's like, "No," and then but it was great because this synergy started to happen.
Yeah.
It was like when you were talking about the spiral galaxy.
Yeah.
Like I saw all of that. Like when you're just everything from the sun
Yep.
in space and these
How plants grow.
Yes. Like I was seeing that in my head while you were describing that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, but I mean, it was so detailed. And I was just seeing all of us this exact same way.
Right.
All of these lights.
And you can say a simulation. We live in a simulation. People talk about that.
Oh yeah, simulation theory. Yeah.
So it's similar. I mean, I think there is a simulation going on, but what people think about it as far as computers go, it's very narrow-minded because we think of things in a technological mindset rather than
quantum.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, because it's
Brandon, you feeling the right thing to say at the right time. Dude, you're
all
like,
your stuff
he's
is
always been
fractal
like that.
patterns. So
You know
good.
what? You're not the first woman to say that.
yeah,
Did I
skinny
say
guys,
something?
skinny guys with big dicks, volumes 1 through 30.
oh my God.
No, real quick. And this is super funny. So we were on this other podcast. Brandon's like, hey, we got this podcast with these ladies, and I just moved into this house. And I'm like, I'll do it in my closet.
Yeah.
And we're on there. And where were they from? Like
Louisiana and New York, I think.
Yeah, Louisiana and New York. These black ladies who had this podcast about
motherhood, sex, marijuana.
Yeah, motherhood, sex, and marijuana.
Interesting.
And we were talking, and you know, I'm such a smart ass, and I can hold a straight face no matter what. And I was like, I was like, yeah, Brandon used to do porn, and one of the younger ladies, she goes, for real? And the other lady, she's older, and she's just like, girl. She's just shaking her head, and we're like, and she's like, for real? And I'm like, yeah, don't you? He's been in all. He's like, yeah, he's in.
Because I just keep a straight face.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, he's in all the good ones. He's in guys with big skinny guys with big dicks. He's in volumes 3 through 33. Yeah. And she's like, for real? And she pulls out her phone and starts looking.
No way.
And the other girl was like,
she's like, no. He's girl, and I was just like,
you got her.
But the thing is like everybody always says that. They're like, I don't know if you're joking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, then always just assume that I am.
Right.
Yeah. Well, my kids always say something, and they're like, I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not. And I'm like,
I
was being serious that time, but like,
but it's a generation.
Yeah.
Everything that comes out of my mouth is sarcastic for the most part.
Oh man, you guys are my people.
Yeah, for sure. And I know. I mean, you know that, but it's just like it. When you said that, about society, what I think about, and it makes more sense now when I keep my ear to the political grindstone just to understand how economics is going to start shifting.
Sure.
That's why I think about that. So I can go, all right, maybe gas is going to go down, jobs are going to go up. Or shit, well, I mean, maybe I'll be a construction guy, right? I mean, who knows? But in that shift, it just seen this war on our children to divide us because of all of the things that, technology is usually an excuse, I feel right now. Because it could have been the same way of going, what, you're going to give the kids pencils? Next thing you're going to give them paper, and they're going to have ideas. I guarantee every new thing, like when the masses were mostly illiterate, and the ones who were literate were usually, part of the papacy, right? And so...
that in the church,
yeah. And so you're like, great. And that's why they held such power over the people, and who knew that learning would change the world.
Yeah.
And they're like...
it is the perspective that makes you the creator.
Yeah. 100%.
Because you
you're a
either
co-creator.
live the role of creator or you live the role of like, I'm an NPC and life just happens to me.
Exactly. And when you view yourself as a servant, you will keep manifesting yourself as the servant until you see otherwise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, there's so many things I was gonna...
There's a song that I like to listen to.
Yeah,
I guess it's not really a song. It's an overlay of an Alan Watts talk, but it's overlaid with music.
Yeah, I know the song you're talking about.
And I think it's just like the
talking about dreams.
But it's basically like talking about that if you were consciousness, if you were source, if you were whatever, you would live a million lifetimes, that you would live like everything you wanted to do. You would do like
every
have as
kind
much
of
money,
pleasure.
everything you could ever imagine. And after a million lifetimes, you would start to get bored. And you would start to wonder, well, what would it be like if I were to just not do that? What would it be like if I were to not try and control all of that? And it said you would eventually reach the moment that you would be in this exact moment that you are right now.
Bingo. Actually, that's exactly how the universe created humans. It was for that reason. Is like, how low can I descend in order to reascend?
But you have to feel and recognize that. Like, it's interesting because so much of like every religious text is all just similar stories, just told in different ways, and everyone going, well, but like this version is true and this version is true, and you're like, they're all the same story.
But it's just
it's told differently.
Well, but it didn't. It wasn't the same weight for a very long time until it started being put into more of a theology as opposed to just a philosophy.
But
which
the
is
theory
typically
now
how I see
is
it.
like, so I grew up Mormon, so a lot of my theologies come from there. After that, I studied Christianity because I came non-denominational, and like, but like, the idea of most Mormons is you become God once you die and achieve all of this stuff, if you've been good enough. Well, that God is basically source. So if you are source and you have to wait to become source, like, but at the same time, it's their contradictions of like, well, God was, and there never will be another God, and never was. Like that there only was one according to biblical stuff. So there's just like these contradictions, and I'm like, well, if you're source, you either always have been source or you never were.
Right.
So you're either already source.
Yeah.
So then it's just the realization of like, okay, well, I'm no longer a servant. I am source, and becoming and living in that instead of living in that other aspect of it.
Well, that's when you become more connected.
Most of them are taught like, you aren't source, you aren't good, and like you will be better, or you'll be this next glorification of source or whatever once you do all these things, versus you are source, you hold everything within, you just have to realize that and then like try and go from there.
Right.
But it's a very like, that's not taught for the most part now. It's more
right.
pushed in a very different
I
perspective.
get what you're saying. Amber, go ahead. No, because you're right you're there. Going. No, you're right there.
Okay, let's go. 1, 2, 3, see if we say it at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. You go.
I forgot. You go.
Oh, shit.
It'll come back.
No, I really appreciate what Brandon just said there, because I believe that the majority humans are very confused, and the interpretation is their interpretation of how to be able to get closer to source. And so as religions come up there, it's a good idea because people want to kind of copy. They want to copy it because, well, you feel good, because humans want that. If we're going to put it in a chemical way, they want the dopamine.
Yeah.
And when you're safe and around others who do the same thing, then it's easier. But it's easy when it was at source, because when it's at the bare minimum, it really was about connection. And now it's all about doing the right thing. And it was like a conversation I just had in church last Sunday. This guy says, yeah, as long as you do the right things. And I said, okay, tell me what the right things are. And he goes, well, they tell us, no. You don't need to tell me about what some other human told you. What do you know?
Yeah.
And
not that arm of flesh thing.
Now, and that's why a lot of people will consider those who are dogmatic really weak. They are completely white wolf. They've allowed themselves to say no. That's the sheltered families.
Yeah.
Say we don't play with them because they're not in accordance of our philosophy, and they put it on the divine. So I think that they get these ideas and they're close, these inspirations. That's what these guys who were writing things down because they felt inspiration. They weren't like, I hope a bunch of people know, thousands of years from now, how fucking important I am, that I took all this fucking time to write this shit down. And no, it was, they were so overcome with it. And I think now when we feel it, we just keep it suppressed and we don't want to share it. Yeah. Because we're just like, nah, I'll share too much. But it's like when we were on the phone and I said, hey, I love you. It doesn't come very often these days. Yeah. And it was a genuine feeling because of connection. And we talked about it that night. Yeah. Like we've known each other for very long time. We have. And it made sense. Remember Homer? I told you about Homer? My wife's great-grandfather? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Homer. I know Homer. I knew him while he was here. And it was so sad that we saw each other when he was at the end of his life.
Are you kidding me? Like, he came to his prime where he learned what he needed to learn.
Oh, yeah.
And he just passed that on to you with just his presence.
Oh, totally did. I mean, it was so...
It's exactly what you needed then and what he still offers you now.
Yeah. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. That connection, and it from that point on, there was no denying it. And I think that a lot of people get that confused with, oh, that's part of my faith, and they attach the word faith to a religion, but faith is not that.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
And it's like people trying to, as far as religion goes, I also grew up Mormon, but growing up also with one foot in the spirit realm, I had guides to say, tweak what I was learning, whether it's scriptures or people. Yeah. And I also, like, my parents is, as much as I, have said how harsh my dad is, there's a part of him that was incredibly intuitive, and it's like something spoke through him to me oftentimes throughout my childhood, knowing that I needed that guidance. And he was really profound for my growth in that way. He also, being the dark wolf that he was at the time, gave me the strength to be able to give my kids up for adoption, to give them a better life. Because I was probably more in my white wolf, where I was kind of...
very subservient.
Well, I'd lived... Just as an old soul, you kind of live so many lifetimes. You get targeted oftentimes. You die horrific deaths oftentimes because you're targeted. Because being in this matrix sort of a reality, it's like what's the guy of the glasses? What are they called?
Oh, Neo from Matrix? Or
the
guy,
agents.
The agents kind of come after you out of the program.
Yeah, when you're discovering new.
When people have programs, and we all have them. We all have programs. There's times I've been the agent. There's times, I've been the agent one time in my life. Never, ever.
Preying on young boys.
Like once. Oh, my God. So
he was tasty.
It's kind of the other way around.
Oh, really?
I had to learn to, just be like, no. But regardless, like, where were we? We just totally... Oh, religion. Mm-hmm. So It originally, the ideas came as amazing inputs for this animalistic human that had this nature to survive, that lived in our lower 3 chakras, if you know what I'm saying by that. Where it's like survival, food, water, sex, produce,
Shelter.
There you go. And then the ego and all of that. And our society is like formulated into such a way that we're really being forced to like stay in that, where we're being taught by the spirit realm to kind of move ourselves out of that. We don't need to always like live this really low vibrational animalistic kind of mindset where we live in duality 24/7. It's in the political realms, it's in between men and women. Oh man, we could do like 5,000 podcasts and not even cover all the details of things that are going on as to what got our civilization to the way that it is, or that created humans the way that they are. Because I think very galactically and expansively, just because of being tapped into it. So it's really interesting for me to have to feel like I'm pulling all this energy or consciousness from this other place that thinks and feels differently, that brings it back to this very humanistic way of thinking, where it's like we're talking about religion, where it feels like that's kindergarten. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in an insulting way
No.
whatsoever. It is a stepping stone for many people, but it's a place that people can get stuck based off of programming, right?
Totally. No, I say that a lot. I think that I'm there to be able to help them.
Yeah.
Because I'm not there to just follow blindly. All I keep
Right.
thinking is that the teachings of Yeshua was to love these people and they will love you back. And so I do that. And I recently had that, like, they have me teaching class now. And I'm like, cool, because I teach classes. I just talk.
That was the best.
Yeah, and I just started it out. And this guy's like, where are we at in the lesson? And I'm like, oh, no. I just used the title of it.
Yeah.
But we're going to go into whatever.
Well,
and it's hard for some people when you talk about stuck, because they just can't get past it. You know, we've got family members that are like,
right. And that's because in our like animalistic DNA, we don't want to, rub ourselves against the crowd. Otherwise we'll be rejected and we won't have.
And change will happen.
And being abandoned from the pack is not safe.
You die.
Yeah. And that's what it is. So it's a fear thing of like, if I step away from this pack, well, I'm not safe anymore.
Exactly.
So it's animalistic.
100%.
So it's so hard to break.
It's these communities of safety. And if you step away from that safety net, what do you have? Death,
well, it's also
loneliness.
based off of trauma.
Yeah.
Like humans, every human on the planet that I know of that's here now is living as a result of thousands of years of trauma.
Generational trauma. Yeah.
And that's not an excuse, but it's also not something to be ashamed of. It's something to just recognize as that's what it is. And then to take that and say, like, people are going to be in their programming of religion where they're not questioning what they're being taught. And the heart of religion is meant to bring you closer to that divine source. But that divine source lives inside of you, but it also lives in everyone. People always say, like, you have to go inside yourself to find yourself. But in reality, it's like every aspect of your life will show you aspects of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I can learn from a freaking billboard driving down the road, I can learn from
how it
the
affects
commercial.
you, how you feel, interactions with other humans, and going, oh shit, I did this. Okay. Because then it's going, this is me. Because most, at this age in our lives, 90% of what we do as humans is reaction. It's subconscious. So you're not even thinking. It is your programming.
Yeah. Exactly.
So you're literally following your programming of your life going, well, no, I'm different. You're just following your programming.
And it's like the baseline of programming is fear. It is fear of being rejected and ultimately dying. I went through a near-death experience when I was around the age of 21 and also when I was about 30-something, 30. And when I went through that, and just being the kind of person that I am, I had to learn to not care so much about what people think doesn't mean I don't care about the people. It just means that it's not going to control my thoughts, feelings, and actions. It still does to some degree, even to this day.
Because we're human.
Because I'm human.
Yeah.
I have a body. But ultimately, I say things that out of something that sounds incredibly controversial, but not with malintent in my heart. It's to share out of love, even if it's like harsh, even if it sounds harsh. It's out of saying, like, we all need to be aware of this. It's important for us to self-evaluate, or it's important for us to recognize this in our society. And is this something that we want to continue to do? Or do we want to move out of this trauma mindset and transcend it and become something better? I'm kind of hearing, like, to talk about the political arena for a minute, kind of go from like religion to politics for a second.
Sure.
So if you look at politics, it's very, we look at it like it's one of those things that controls our lives, and it does to some degree.
Right.
It is part of the co-creation, and it is part of the collective co-creation, because we've all been taught to, like, depend on the government, and it can tell us what we can and cannot do. Whether we obey it or not is a different story, but it's still there, right? So if you look at things in a dualistic perspective, everything in this reality has that dualistic energy. I would have to consider, like, left-wing type ideologies very feminine in nature, and right-wing very masculine in nature. And I look at it like neither of them are good or bad, but each of them has positive aspects and a distorted aspect to it.
Distorted, that's a good word.
And it always comes with a pure intention at its heart, at its root. I'll give you an example. Let's talk about left-wing kind of ideologies for a second. So left-wing people have a tendency to think of the community.
Yeah.
To think of everybody, which is a very feminine trait. They think of, like, how is this going to affect everybody? How they want everyone to feel safe. They want everybody to feel included. They want their feelings to be heard. They want to feel like they're not powerless and just feel like they're insignificant, or they're overlooked, or they're a minority in some way, right? They want to include everybody in some way. The distorted or the wounded part of the feminine is that like, the female energy can sometimes get so wrapped up in the emotional part of it that it's like the logical part goes out the door. It's like, should we really let men into the bathroom with vulnerable young girls? That's inclusive to do that, but is it healthy to do that? And it creates that really strong distortion where it's like it crosses boundaries. And with any and every relationship we have in this world, whether it's with us and our government, there needs to be healthy boundaries. Mm-hmm. Period. And then there's other things we can go on talking about, the different political ideologies and whatnot. But on the masculine side, which is the very right wing, is like, this is my money. I want small government. You can't take my money. I've earned this. I've worked hard for this. I deserve this. My family deserves this. I'm going to use guns to protect me, myself, and my family, and everybody that I care about.
Yeah.
It says I have full control over how I want to do things, regardless of how it affects another person, if I think it's the right thing to do or if it benefits me. And there's part of it that can get very distorted and very selfish, where it doesn't think about how other people think per se, but it's not wrong either in why it wants what it wants, right? And on the flip side, well, I guess I'm kind of mixing the two. The masculine energy of right wing is like, shoot, hold on, it's coming. It doesn't stop to think how its actions affect other people as much. It's like boundaries, barriers, borders, lines drawn in the sand. We need that healthy boundaries. But it can also be toxic in the sense that, like, you know, you're hoarding, you're greedy, you're selfish. That's the negative aspect of the masculine. So how to counter it is for the masculine and the feminine, or the left and the right, to see why we think the way we think. Why? Why do they think that way? What is in their heart? What is their intentions? Why do they want guns? Why do they want to feel inclusive? And once we understand the perspective of the other, whether we think it's distorted or not, there is always something that's pure about it at its core. At its core.
Yeah.
And that's human nature just wants to feel accepted and safe in both aspects, in both arenas. And if we can understand each other, whether we completely live that way or not, it can create balance, and we can learn to work together instead.
It's just the negative energies that everyone has that's out there when it comes to discussions on politics, that it's like there I don't see many productive conversations because of that. You know, that it just no solutions ever happen because no one's truly trying to understand the why.
Because everyone's trying to be right.
Always.
Yeah.
It's you're not right, because
the chasing
if
of truth.
you're right, I'm wrong. And that leads to fear, and we're fear driven. As a human, it's like, I don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong,
that's part of that primal
then I'm not
instinct.
safe. Something's happened because I fucked up. Well, couldn't it just be an opportunity to learn?
Yeah.
Like that's all.
Or
it
to be
becomes.
patient
We
and
need
to
to-
be understanding. It's like, okay, well, they don't have that knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's like you talk about, like, being an old soul. It's like you tend to start, when you realize more about that, you tend to have more patience.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm such an old man driver. No, go
I'd run
ahead.
you
Go
off
ahead.
the-
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm that guy.
I'm the
always-
opposite. I'm like speed demon on the road. But
just like random.
I used to be a
I
lot
drive
more
like an
angry, though.
athlete where I'm like, I'm feeling the flow and I'm going.
Yeah.
But I'm very considerate at the same time.
I try and not
Right?
cut everyone off. I look at all my gaps. I'm very aware of all my spacing,
Exactly.
and I'm very good at timing. So I look at it and I'm like, they're going
Same.
this speed. I'm going this speed. If I speed up this, I can make that gap and not cut them off. I don't ever worry, because I'm like way more aware when I'm driving. And then I look at
Right?
everyone else. I'm like, they're on their phones. They're not fucking paying attention.
No
And so then
kidding.
I become incredibly frustrated behind the wheel.
You know what I think?
And that's where I have had to learn, like, chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
You're just here. You cannot control them.
Yeah.
Do not bother.
If I'm just driving and I'm on my own and I've got like some synthwave music playing, all I'm thinking is,
Gran Turismo,
this
shit.
place is pretty amazing. I think that every day,
I
like I'm
think that
driving.
too, but I'm doing
yeah,
it as I'm going like 100 miles.
No,
an hour.
I'm like a Sub-Zero. I'm like, wow. People built these things. Like, I'm so, and especially if I'm elevated, I'm like, so appreciative. I tell guys at Walmart, if I see them randomly like stalking, they look pissed off, I'm like, thank you for being here and doing that.
Yeah.
The guy looks at me, he goes, what? I'm like, yeah, thank you for putting it on the shelf, because nobody would be able to get that. I'd have
Yeah.
to make it. You know, you're performing magic in front of me, dude. Thank
Yeah.
you. And the guy goes, all right. I'm like,
You know how much that made his day?
probably did.
You acknowledging him, he will never show it to you.
Yeah.
He may never even admit it to himself, but swear to God, that really affected him.
But I think we have that ability to be able to change your world, your reality.
Yeah.
It's something that Chris Voss talks about, to bend their reality,
Yeah.
to make them see what can be instead of giving them opposition. So it's not looking at differences. That's why I love children so much, especially little kids. Like I see my boy,
Yeah.
you know, the only thing, you know, his favorite wrestlers are either Polynesian or black guys. I'm like, yeah, you get, and it's so cool that he doesn't. And I was like, which guy you pick? He goes, Bobby Lashley is not the big black guy, because when you get older, you allow yourself to get kind of into these little segments, but I just don't see it that way,
Yeah.
right? I just see it's like, man, that guy's got a cool accent. I wonder if I can imitate it.
Can I pay you a compliment for a second? For as long as I've known you, Jesse, out of all the men that I've interacted with at the age that we were at in junior high and high school, You had to be, how do I say this? Like the most kind-hearted, open, friendly, what's the word? Let me see. You had more balance inside of you between your masculine and your feminine side than any other man that I had encountered at that age.
Wow.
And
that's incredible.
It is. And I mean
especially
that.
at that age, yeah.
I mean that because the program for most men is hide your emotions. Yes. Don't tell people. It's about competition. You don't want the guy to know that he's doing a good job because you want to be above him.
Yeah.
And you've always had this like inclusive in the sense that you want people to feel good because when they feel good, you feel good. And that you always treated me with respect that way.
Well, yeah.
At a young age. And it always stood out to me that you not only were friendly towards me, but genuine. And you deeply cared about what I actually was going through, which I was going through a lot in that, time in my life. And I knew you knew that. Not to the degree that you know now, but it always like made things easier. I'm like, oh, there's at least one dude out there that's like
not trying to get in your pants.
Yeah. that cared about my heart, not just like, hey, let's be friends with the girl.
Yeah. No, they wanted to be friends with the human. Like, know you as a person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Me as the soul that I am, not just because I'm a girl.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. I always saw you that way.
Yeah.
I've always known you.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, right? I mean, this is crazy, dude. Like, this is how we were when we met each other when we were 13.
Yeah.
And there was just instant connection. We just started talking, da-da-da-da. And it wasn't like somebody was going to... Nobody ever asked us, like, hey, are you guys, like, together or something? No. We just talked all the time.
Yeah. Always kind of connected.
Do you remember, speaking of junior high, it just came to me, do you remember the Bean twins?
Well,
funny you
should say that.
So, Gary only had one nut.
That's hilarious.
Wow.
No.
How did you know that?
Because he told us all about it.
Oh.
We were in science class, and the doctor, the teacher for the class, we were talking about dissecting animals and stuff, and he said the gonads, and Gary goes, I only have one.
Wow.
And everybody goes over there, he goes, yeah, I got one. And this kid goes, how did you do it? And he goes, so you should never twist them.
Oh my God, he did it to himself?
Yeah, he just kept twisting him.
Poor kid.
He thought he's trying to push himself, and he crushed, dude, he cut off all the circulation to that one testicle.
No.
And then it died, and then they had to take it out.
Oh.
So he's just rocking that, maybe a marble. I don't know.
Okay. So the Bean twins, what do we remember about them other than the one ball?
No, I just remember junior high, like when you said that, all these images of junior high Canyon Junior High.
Really?
Like all of the hallways right now, I can see them. I remember I had this history class that was a cool teacher. He showed us Last of the Mohicans, the rated R version, and he didn't care. At school?
Holy shit.
And he's like, it says rated R on here, but there's no swear words or sex in it, so you guys shut up. And I was like,
wait, what teacher was that?
He was an old guy.
What was it?
I forgot his name.
Oh, wait, what did he teach?
He taught history.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Sumner.
Yes, Mr. Sumner.
It was like
he didn't care.
I loved that one.
Yeah. He was so... Teachers back then were different. They just let you have it. Yeah. They didn't fucking care. Like when I was a little kid, I remember there was... Hell yeah, dude. I got hit with a ruler, dude.
Damn.
Cross my hands because I kept fidgeting. And this Polynesian woman, she just went wham. And I'm like, she goes, stop moving your hands.
Yeah, I didn't get smacked, but they would have if they had that then, because I got new invention of triple black in class because they had these card turning systems.
Yeah.
And they only had purple until my older brother got in there, and then they invented black. And then I came the next year, and they invented triple black because I had to keep turning my card.
Oh, for behaviors?
For behaviors and shit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whatever, Ben. You were just, and that's another thing, too, when they attack our children to try to just get them to not think.
Yeah.
And not utilize some of the things like ways that even the technology we have now, like when you were talking about that, like immediately I went to the pyramids and understanding like, you know, that one, there's a temple in India, you know, it's carved.
Uh-huh.
And
Inside
they
the stone.
Yeah, and there's no
With
waste.
lasers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ancient, like...
They had, because I keep feeling this really strongly. It's because they weren't kept from being able to advance that way consciously.
Yeah.
But cataclysms and whatnot happen all the time, and so there's resets.
So are we going to talk about aliens now? Because you're
Sure.
going down that road.
Let's go aliens.
Here we go. That's where you originated from.
Well,
right?
no, like that. I asked about that one before, but yeah. Take it out. Take it away.
So here we go.
Yeah.
It's really challenging for me because I always want to go like back to the beginnings of the universe. So it's hard for me to like kind of start somewhere in the middle.
So you've been abducted before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
The only thing that pops in my head is anal probing. So you're gonna have to give me a better like story or something.
Dude, mate, never yuck someone's yums.
I know. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I was just saying that's all my mind went to. So,
Right.
because TV and you know.
Yeah. Well, like a lot of the,
What kind of shows are you watching?
What kind of shows aren't you watching?
wait,
Not that kind.
yeah.
I'll send you some links.
Yeah, every time I come in there and it's playing on this TV, I'm like, what the fuck are you watching? He goes, children's programming. And it's just like, oh, man.
It's from India. Don't even worry.
Yeah, exactly, right?
All right. So, sorry.
No, I
no worries.
kind of wanted to cut that tension for you. So go ahead.
Thanks. Okay.
So when did you know what it was?
Well, growing up Mormon, I was taught that there's devils and that type of thing, and I would see them and feel them. Physically, tangibly feel them touching me, see them with my eyeballs, not just with my third eye, which I
From how
see in
old?
both.
Do you know?
I'm like 3, 4, 5 years old.
So really earliest
very
kind of
young.
memories.
I have memories of being in my mom's womb. I have memory, like being empathic. I have the ability to feel what other people feel, even my mom in my womb. And I knew what she was going through, what she was thinking. And the craziest thing happened. Just give you a little story on this. Being in my mom's womb, I remember her feeling overly anxious about me coming. Overly anxious, like scared, which is like an understandable thing to experience. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a baby.
In the driveway.
Yeah.
Gonna hurt. But the thing that she was going through was she felt 100% unsupported by my dad, who didn't know how to be there for her emotionally. He had not been taught that or learned it. And so I was born December 13th. In the winter, hunting season, okay? My dad wanted to go hunting. So he bought a permit to go hunting. And my mom's like, wait, Rick. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say his name. But anyway.
Yeah.
We can cut it if you want.
Beep.
Why are you going hunting? I'm about to have a baby. You're going to be gone for 3 days to a week. And what if I give birth to the baby and you're not here? And he had been very not present for my older brother and sister. And they were also very difficult for her. And so I remember feeling that fear that she was feeling. And I remember doing what I could to comfort her the best that I could. And I remember, I know this sounds really strange, but I remember like my heart would expand and then I could feel this flush of like fluids and energy coming out of my heart. And now that I'm older and I understand, I was producing like hormones from my heart to create a calming effect that would go through my body into the umbilical cord, into the placenta, into her. And I remember this recycling energy going between her and I. And since all things are connected physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, I was very conscious of what was happening there. So needless to say, I remember feeling her anxiousness and like my mom had, this is a rare occasion for her to talk my dad into anything was impossible, but he decided to stay home this weekend in particular because she was having contractions, thinking she was going to go into labor with me, and she didn't end up giving birth to me. So the following weekend, he was wanting to go too. And she's like, but what if I have the baby? And he's like, you didn't last weekend. Why would you this weekend? Kind of a thing. You made me miss it last time. And it just made her feel overly stressed to the point where it's like, by the time she gave birth to me, it was a very stressful thing for her. And I remember being an adult, not knowing that story about my dad wanting to go hunting. And I relayed those like emotions that I felt in the womb to her. And she told me the story of like, yeah, your dad wanted to go hunting. This is why I was feeling really anxious, like he wasn't going to be there for me, kind of a thing. You know what I'm
Should be
saying?
alone and third kid or more kids.
Yeah. And I even remember being, I think I was around the age of 1. I remember being able to walk. It was hard for me to reach the doorknob. I remember her laying on the bed one day and I was trying to open up the doorknob and I couldn't open it very well. And I finally realized that it was partially open, so I pushed against it and she was crying in bed one day. And I remember things really distinctively as far as like visuals. I'm a very visual person, so I remember she had roses on her bedspread. And I remember trying to climb up, grabbing the bedspread and trying to climb up. And I couldn't pull myself up because I wasn't strong enough. And then she kind of was shocked and was like, oh my gosh, somebody's in here, turns around and sees me laying or trying to climb up the bed. And tears are coming down her face. And I see her and she pulls me up onto the bed. And the moment I touch her, I feel all of her pain and sadness and I start crying. And I hugged her with my little arms around her head. And with the best to my ability, I said, Mommy, it's okay, it's okay. And I remember absorbing all of her pain during that time. And I recognized I could make her feel better doing that. But it was really hard for me. And being so little, having those memories, and I think why I remember them is because Spirit allows me to, so that I can understand what I'm supposed to be doing here and what's happening to me, what's been happening to me all along, to understand my empathic abilities, etc. So I was a lot more pure energetically as a child, that I could transmute energy a lot more easily. And when I talk about these things, I want people to understand too that we all have these abilities. Every single one of us has empathy inside of us, unless you're a psychopath.
You might have a few of those
Unless
too.
you're like killing people or, torturing kinds of things. Not you, sorry. We all have these abilities to tap into people. So I'm not, like I've learned it and I've experienced it, but everybody has this ability. And the more you open up to your abilities, whether you're clairsentient, claircognizant, where you hear things, the more we open up to these abilities and start trusting ourselves and trusting our guidance and that divine guidance from both outside of us and inside of us both, the more it will heighten those abilities within us. And so I've had this kind of course in life of doing that at a young age in order for me to teach people how to remember to tap into their own abilities so that they could apply it to their life and it could help them grow, heal, and transcend like the lower vibrational consciousness that we've been programmed into to being. So I do have memories of seeing dark things when I was little, tangible physical things. So to answer your question, we're going in a roundabout way. To answer your question as far as like when did I start remembering, at a very young age I could see dark things and stuff. But I remember my dad would oftentimes spank me before I went to bed, and I would see...
As a chore?
Kinda.
Like...
It was...
Spank Amber, go to bed.
It was a regular thing.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was hard on me being sensitive as I was, especially when I wasn't doing anything wrong. It was like...
You were just being kid.
Go to bed.
Yeah, go to bed.
Yeah, and I remember like my dad would be screaming, yelling, and I'd see this vein pop out of his forehead, right? Like you do, spit flying. But then his face would transform into something else. And his voice would double up a little bit. And I could see an entity attachment to him, like yelling at me. And I feel like my dad had both good things talking to me through him, but also not so good things, obviously. And then what happened was, when he left the room, whatever it was that was attached to him would stay in the room with me. And I remember do you remember being young in Utah, so freaking hot that you don't want to sleep with a blanket.
No, nothing.
You're
No.
sweating. So I remember being really hot, but I couldn't not sleep with a blanket because I didn't want the things to touch me because they were touching my leg or touching me, and I could physically feel it. So as far as like my original abduction
was it more connected to that?
I experienced both entities but also tangible physical things that would come into my room. And I think the reason, because they have the ability to like wipe your memory, right? Aliens do, and so does the government. Let's just say that secret government.
Yeah.
So they have the ability to wipe your memory, but I feel like they would make me remember that to keep me in a state of fear, because I was hard to program, being as sensitive as I was to understanding what was really going on. And so they allowed me to remember specific things. I remember smells like dead, rotting flesh, like a dead body in my room. I remember red eyes, scales, claws. I remember grays, that type of thing. Ooh. So, yeah. I feel like there's... How do I describe this? Aliens have a more expanded understanding of how humans work and how the energetic realms work. So they're aware of who we are as individuals when we're born, through several different faculties. And I'll give you an example. When you're born, your spirit holds a frequency, a tone, and specific colors. And they have technology to be able to read it and measure it. They also keep an eye on this type of thing. And so they know when certain beings or people are being born. And there was a period in time where we had an influx of infiltrators in a good way, where there were beings from a higher dimensional place coming in and being born as humans. This is the indigo children. Have you heard of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're indigo. Of course you have. And I'm not saying you aren't either, because, yeah, I'm still getting to know you, Brandon.
That's okay.
Super awesome. That came in as like the white blood cells in the body that's like, okay, let's clean up this place a little bit. Try and repair as much as we can and help people be a better version of themselves and heal the body, that type of thing. So they targeted specific people, and that's why we've experienced like really hard things in life, hard relationships, hard upbringing. Another part of why I feel like us as souls that have come into the world at this time is also because part of our mission is to transmute the negative energy that's stored in the collective that keeps people in a dark programming. And that's what Yeshua did when he came to the planet too. It's part of what he experienced in the Garden of Gethsemane. He was transmuting a lot of dark, heavy consciousness along with a lot of other people and beings that were doing that simultaneously with him there. And I could tell that story at some point. I don't feel like now's the time for it, but
That's okay.
so yeah, aliens.
So what is your belief on aliens? What do you know?
Okay, so how humans were created. We originally came from other star systems.
Okay.
The original blueprint of a humanoid being came from other star systems. And then there were wars that occurred there that created refugees going out to other locations. And at one point, humans fell in frequency and ended up in a pocket reality, which is where we are now. Fell in consciousness, vibration, and also into this realm, into this planet. And then our DNA was manipulated by factions of those beings, where they took our pure, like, divinely created being, and they altered our genetics to a lower. That's why we have 12 strands that aren't fully active, or only a portion of our brain, is because they shut those parts of our genes down. That's why our telomeres only allow us to live to a certain age, and why in like scriptures or ancient text they talk about beings living for at least 1,000 years type of thing, is because they dropped us. And if we talk about resets, they reset not only our DNA, but they also reset the earth, in the sense that they can alter the weather and the hemisphere and the oxygen levels, which allow us to like not be as conscious, etc.
Yeah.
So they kind of target us at a physical level, but also spiritual simultaneously, right? So that's like a lot of why we've dropped in consciousness. And I read an article or something recently. I didn't read the actual article, I just read the heading, which said like most of the students in 30 schools in Illinois do not read or write at their level of the age that they are at.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that's deliberate, right? For our government to do that, to keep us dumbed down so that it creates the control mechanism. But from macrocosm level, that's aliens wanting to kind of keep us suppressed. Why are they doing that? Why? Because they can harvest our consciousness, because we are source consciousness in bodies, and they can harvest our energy because they're stuck vibrationally, and it allows them to continue to live and exist because they're siphoning the energy from us, or being able to control us. Where, like, if you think of it on an economic level, we're producing all the stuff that they want. We are making the cars if they want a car. We're making the jets if they want a jet. We're just functioning. And if you really want to get dark, they can harvest our physical bodies and produce food from that, which they do. But
Like, it just sounds like the Matrix then.
It's like Soylent Green. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's
Yep.
No, exactly. I mean, it's, yeah. Brandon, I know you got questions.
Should we talk about the Anunnaki?
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar, so.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's kind of why I brought it up. So, how do I say this? Back in the time of Lemuria and Atlantis, when they were on the planet,
Yeah.
those were higher evolved civilizations, where those beings were 12-strand activated beings, where they had access fully to their 12 strands of DNA, which means that they are fully tapped in, intuitive, like tapped into consciousness, tapped into the source creation that they are, and that everybody is around them, and they created community, right? So in Lemuria, it was, since we're talking about polarities, and our universe is created based off of the polarities in order for us to experience each other. Lemuria was more feminine in nature, so it was very in touch with nature and spirituality and music and arts, and they use a lot of crystals and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I have memories of living actually in Lemuria, 2 of them in particular that I can think of. And then we had Atlantis, was the masculine version of polarity of our planet, which was very technologically advanced and they had the starships and the everything, and you can look all over the planet where there's like, if you get on Google Maps, you can look up
This is the Rickott structure?
there's like landing sites
Oh,
that
yeah.
look like stars. Have you seen those?
Yeah, yeah.
And if you look on the planet too, you can see that there's like hollowed out sockets where it's like you can see bombs that have landed on the planet, and sometimes they look like big craters. That's why the moon looks like it's got craters all over it. There was a war that happened in our solar system where two planets were destroyed. One was called Tiamat and one was called Maldek. And the Earth was actually, I want to say, the fourth planet from the sun at one point. And when Tiamat got destroyed, it ended up, eventually part of the Earth was destroyed. And then that's why we have an asteroid belt. The asteroid belt is the remnants of the planets being broken up and destroyed. And that war occurred and everything. So we're kind of I go back to human civilization is refugees, or basically like trauma from the wars, the ancient galactic wars. And so what happened was eventually there were beings on a planet called Sirius or Nibiru. There was one called Nibiru, where some refugees from other planets came, and they actually needed gold from Earth to use to put into their atmosphere because their planet was dying.
Converting it into anatomic gold, right?
Mm-hmm. And they also were ingesting it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you can find gold in mummified mummies in Egypt, is because they were ingesting the gold because of the frequency it held, and it also creates health properties on a physical level as well. And
monatomic. Yeah, it's monatomic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, monatomic gold. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's white powder.
Oramus is another.
Yeah.
Another way to produce gold or manufacture it. And then, so they, where was I?
Tiamat.
Oh, so they actually, in some ways, infiltrated Atlantis in the priest class. And they started giving them technology to say, hey, use this technology this specific way and you'll get more power. Well, since we had a fall, when Tiamat got destroyed, we went from like a 7th dimensional consciousness down to a 5th dimensional consciousness. So if you say we live in a 3-dimensional world right now, we went from 7th to 5th, which is where Atlantis, Lemuria was. And then at the time Atlantis fell was when we dropped down into the 3D consciousness. And why we only have 2 to 3 strands of DNA that have been activated and that we have access to. That's why we're also stuck in the 3 chakras, which is the solar plexus, sacral, and the root. So just to go back to what we were talking about, what was I saying? Oh, Earth, like how humans were created. The Atlanteans, a lot of them had gone and abducted some of the Lemurians and started bringing them back there and doing experimentation on them. And why they were doing that was because Lemurians, like I said, already had a 12-strand activation inside of their DNA, and they were trying to get access to that. Because we had 12-strand DNA that was activated, that means we had consciousness that could go to other realms. So if you think of like portals or stargates, not only can we conscious in our consciousness spirit have that level of awareness, but we could physically travel to higher dimensions where these beings wanted access to those higher dimensions in order to continue to siphon the life force energy off of it, because they were cut off because they messed their own DNA up. They did things to feed their dark wolf way too much, and they became very militaristic in nature and control oriented. So they took a lot of humans from Lemuria, took their DNA, and started doing hybrids or hybridization programs. And they still do it to this day, which is why abductions happen, why gray aliens abduct people. Some of them are like androids, but some of them are physical, like biological gray aliens that are a future version in one timeline of humanity who altered their DNA to the point where they can no longer produce humans and their race was dying off. So they're coming back from the future into the past to extract our DNA to try and like maintain their existence and stuff like that. Am I going too far out there?
No,
Okay.
Crazy.
I'm down. No, I mean, I yeah. You know, you're drawn to certain things for no reason whatsoever. At least that's what you
Yeah.
think at first.
Right.
But I don't believe that. And while you're talking about, yeah, I mean, I'm seeing it all in my head.
Yeah.
And so it's not because I'm creative. I'm just seeing it when you're describing all of it. Like I've showed Brandon tons of stuff, and Brandon gets into it deep too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when we talk about Atlantis and when you're talking about Lemuria, like, you know, my wife's like, how is it the Polynesians are all the way out there? And I'm like, oh, because of Lemuria used to be there. That was a small little
It's a
part.
continent.
Is it in
Yeah.
that book too? I think
Mhm.
it talks about Lemuria.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense because, I mean, they were both on different sides of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And in how that would look. And I mean, the catastrophes, we just, the time is a construct.
Mm-hmm.
It's just existence. And it's so funny because time is only dictated because we're on the spinning rock.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Other
Yeah.
than that, like, you go outside of it and time ceases to exist. As soon as you leave the atmosphere, time doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. So it just goes on for eons. And
Mm-hmm.
to think that, you know, we're at the apex, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I got an iPhone, you know, it's just like,
Right.
yeah, but does it take pictures? You're like, it does more than that. But I mean, to know that, like, there's a fall that
Yeah.
keeps happening. It keeps going and going. And this is becoming more and more, if you're paying attention to like the world at large, like a lot more people are gravitating towards this thing. They're being pulled towards an energy and they're looking for answers in anywhere
Yeah.
else than where they're at.
Yep.
Like what you're seeing in Iran. There are mosques closing down like crazy right now.
Mm.
And because they're just like, well, this answer's not that one, so I'm going to go to
Yeah.
another answer. But it's a good thing because they're in transition. They're just trying to seek
Right.
something where they knew that they were dogmatic over here, and they're like, well, let's go over here.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, they're dogmatic too.
That always happens. There's like
Yeah,
cyclical.
multiple.
Yeah, cyclical periods of time where that's meant to be that way, or where the controllers know that that's what we do. That's our human psyche kind of always gravitates towards
Fear.
finding the answers of like what's happened to us. You know, we're trying to find healing on a subconscious level, trying to find like freedom again. But I didn't finish what I was saying as far as like, so they took the DNA to create hybrids to not only harvest gold, but to harvest our energy. And ultimately, what a lot of the ancient texts that we hear about are some of these beings from other planets, or, you know, the Greek pantheon, you know, like the Indian, Hindu, ancient gods.
Yeah, the Vumanas, like when you're talking about that, I'm thinking about it. That's Atlantean technology.
Yeah. And so all over the planet, we have folklore and stories of these beings. And these are just beings from other planets that we call gods because they had abilities that we did not have as humans, right? And so in order for, and keep in mind, not all of them are bad or good, but let's be real. If you have everything you need, well, let's think of like Thor, the Thor movie for a moment, okay? You've got Asgard and you have like Odin and Thor, and their civilization is like, they've gained so much like prosperity and beauty, and their lives are full of everything they need to the point where it's like
They don't want anything. They just have it.
kind of lose themselves.
Yeah.
They become arrogant and purposeless, and they don't have challenge in a way that humbles them. But then we see the story of Thor where he gets stripped of his power of his ancestors and cast down to the earth because he hasn't learned his lesson yet. And that's kind of where humanity is right now, where we've become more of a humbled version of the macrocosm of our ancestors, which are star beings, that is like, in a sense, like needed to learn to be humbled. And I'm not saying that like we should be tortured or all the bad things that are happening in our world is like okay or justified in any which way. I'm just saying on a higher consciousness level, Source Creator knew that that's kind of what we needed in order for us to put our big pants on and grow up and learn to be humble and descend below in order to reascend, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
So as far
You have
as,
to hit bottom in order to be able to.
but we still have that 12-strand DNA because they extracted it from our original ancestors. And so we have ability to access it, which is where our intuitive abilities come from. Because what is DNA? It's information. It's consciousness. It is pure knowing. It is like, it's code.
Yeah. Well, it is 100% code. Yeah.
Yeah. Like quite literally, right?
Yeah.
So as far as like, we have the power to break out of our our self-imposed, or I should say our programmed consciousness, to break out of that, to reascend to who we are, who we're meant to be, which is like Thor reborn kind of an idea, where we're not fighting for pride and power and arrogance. We're fighting because we love people and we're willing to sacrifice ourselves and, you know, be as supportive of each other as we do it, in order for us to like have a sense of purpose, because we're all one and we're all connected. And that's kind of the hero's journey and why we're all experiencing being human. And people hate it, but my God, I love it. I love being human. I do. And I love people so deeply and so wholeheartedly. It makes me emotional, actually, and I probably annoy the hell out of people. I don't really care. I've always felt that way.
Yeah.
I've always felt like when I was created as a being, I felt like I was created from that heart of God. God, Goddess, the divine source, creation. And we're all part of that heart. But I feel like part of my purpose is to hold that emotion and that energy here. And I know I'm here because I love people. And regardless of if you think I'm crazy or weird or what that looks like, right? Or wrong about things is irrelevant. It's like, it doesn't matter as long as we can love each other and be supportive of each other and respect that we have differences. And that's okay, as long as we know we all want the same thing, which is acceptance, a safe place to be, community. We want to protect ourselves and others. We want to just live and be and exist and enjoy the sunset and enjoy driving down the street like a grandpa, like Jesse here, as slow as possible.
Slow.
I thought you were going to say grandpa, and I'm
5
like,
miles.
I told my
Enjoying
son
the-
if he gets his girlfriend pregnant, I literally sent him a song that says Anchors Away, and I said, memorize that song because you'll be singing it if you knock her up right now.
Yeah,
You'll be going, I'm not going to take care of you and that baby right now. You're going to grow up.
that's a good dad. Yeah.
I think that phone's probably dead.
Oh.
Is it on?
I don't know.
If you can't see it on the
Oh.
screen, it's dead.
I see a screen.
Oh, it's still on?
Okay.
It's probably just about.
Man, this has been
2.5
awesome.
hours.
Amber, thank you.
Yeah, I just didn't.
This
plug
is
it in.
just one of many, and I've got a lot of ideas, and this was so awesome.
Yeah, we got to talk about relationships. I know that between men and women, because that is like the next level of where our consciousness is going and what we need to heal.
Let's take us out with that.
And that's a
That might be a whole episode all on its own, bro.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm
with that.
just really elevated.
That's for sure.
No, this was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
That's
you
fantastic.
for being
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And yeah, before this, Brandon, I just had this really strong pull to keep reaching out saying, hey, you need to come, you need to come.
Yeah.
And then last night I was like, hey, it's tomorrow. And she's like, oh, I work. And I'm like, cool. And then I get a text message this morning at like 6 something. And she's just like, hey, call me when you get a bit. And I'm like, okay. And I called her right after I dropped my kids off and I was on the way over here. And she's like, so where you at? Just like, I don't want to do this. But I need to do this because I've been asked to. And it took literally, like, these are the moments where I think about that, like our connection that we have been able to build for over a really long time. But, it's the same thing where I feel the same way as you do. I feel like when I'm around what somebody may call kindred spirits, but I just consider old friends and old souls. And I'm just like, oh, hey, what's up? Because Homer woke me up to what is.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, since that, I used to really fear death. I used to
Yeah.
really fear death.
Did you?
Not anymore. I haven't feared death in years. And it's because it's not it. And who knows what comes next. But that's the reason why you don't know. And that's why it's so important to be able to listen to that part inside of you and not think you're crazy, because I don't. I think it's spot on.
Or just understand that we're all a little crazy.
Yeah, well, and we
That's
just get
okay,
caught. Yeah, like those guys I know.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we can call it crazy if you want.
No, I don't.
It's
I was
fun.
like, it's really just the definition, probably, or like people's
Yeah.
No.
perspective.
I believe it's just an unlocking.
Yeah.
You're just
it's
able
a remembering. It's
Yeah.
like, again, I'm going to say crazy is another way to just say we've been traumatized and we're
Yeah,
in the
that's good.
process of learning to heal ourselves and each other again and be there for each other.
That's cool.
while we're allowing ourselves and each other to heal.
Yeah, I like that explanation a lot
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
That
So-
way we can have more compassion on ourselves. And we're not always, I mean, we're going to get it wrong as we go, which is part of the process. We're going to, all of us believe things that aren't quote unquote true. And all of us believe things that are. It's important for us to remember, like, our base values. What is our base values? I'm worth it. You're worth it. Are we going to reflect that on our outer world, in our daily lives? Am I going to treat you like I'm worth it? Am I going to treat myself like I'm worth it?
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, it's like the golden rule, treat each other you want to be treated, unless you're an asshole and you deserve to be, like, met where you're at.
Well, I think it's the Jesus thing of, like, love yourself and love your neighbor. But if you truly love yourself, not just like, hey, I love you, like truly love, you're going to treat yourself way better. And if you truly love yourself and truly love your neighbor or other people, you're going to treat them that same way.
True.
And it's going to be reflected back to you, because it's like, if you show up in the world as an asshole, people are more likely going to give you shitty returned energy. Their dark wolf is going to come out, because it's like, you're an ass.
Right.
My white wolf can't deal with this shit. I don't have time
write
for
that
this.
down. Be nice.
Yep.
To others.
And all an asshole is a wounded person that doesn't know how to do it differently.
Yep.
And they're hurting and insecure in their own way. It's not justified stopping an asshole if you are one. Stop being a bitch if you are one.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's
just
make
be
it
real.
equal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
But then again, it's all based off of your intention. If your intention is like, I'm telling you the truth even if it hurts because I love you, or I'm telling you the truth because I want to hurt you because I'm pissed off and I'm hurting myself and you deserve to, like, feel what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And it's different. It's based off of your intention and your perception.
That's not love.
No.
Love would hurt.
Love is honest
intentionally.
even if it's painful.
Yeah, but that's not an intentional hurt. Like, hey, I'm trying to
Exactly.
hurt you. It's I love you, and what you're doing might hurt, and this might be a hard conversation.
Yeah.
But that's very different than this is intended
Right.
to hurt you.
Yeah, like
Right.
that dress makes you ugly. Instead, you go and maybe pick another one.
Oh, that color doesn't really go with your eyes. You should choose that one.
Right.
Yeah,
I got
that
in a little bit of an argument with my ex-mother-in-law about this, because she's one of those people that will always try to make people feel comfortable with her.
Yeah.
So she's like, "You're just supposed to lie to him," and I'm like, "No.
No.
If it looks bad, I would want to know if somebody,
Yeah.
It's like when you have a bug.
how I look."
Yeah. Right.
Like, and you're
Something
talking to
teeth.
somebody, and then it's just like whistling,
Oh yeah.
and you're like, all you're
I don't
doing
know
is
what you're
staring
doing,
at that,
Jesse.
and I'm
you're
like,
not wiping your ass, and you're not
Yeah, I know.
blowing your nose. My God.
what do you say? I live like a Viking.
Yeah. Or caveman.
But I remember like having that argument with her, and I'm like, no, how I would word it is I would say, if you like it, that's what's important. I don't think it's the most flattering thing that I've seen on you, but if you like it, that's what really matters.
Yeah, don't yuck someone's yums.
Yeah.
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 And that's honest and respectful, and she just had a hard time with that. So,
Some people really struggle with being honest and respectful.
right.
It can be
It's hard. It's really hard for some
Right.
people, especially with a lot of suppression that goes on in their lives, and
Yeah.
they
That's
learn
trauma.
They learn those
Everyone
actions. Yeah.
comes from
Yeah.
trauma, and it's like,
Yeah.
it sticks with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You can progress
It's
or act
understandable.
accordingly.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's I give people wide berth. I
You know,
don't get mad.
Oh, and it's
at
never
people
too
very
early to
often.
start. They can be 90, they can be 50, they can be, 30.
Wherever
or-
they're at in their
yeah,
journey.
It's never too late
You
to
pick
go, hey,
when you want to be a nice person.
which wolf am
Yeah.
I feeding today?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I really like that concept. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That was
I kind of altered it a little. The story basically is like,
no, but
you
I
either
mean,
feed your white wolf or your dark wolf, and the idea is you feed your white wolf more because it makes you stronger. But in reality, to me, it's like
you got to ride the
you
line.
got to integrate the two in order for you to become the best version of yourself.
I think you just know how to control or command both wolves.
Yeah.
And it's you feed both, but you understand that,
Mm-hmm.
yes, if you're driven and pulled by one because you're not knowing how to control it, 100%, you will
Yeah.
be driven by your wolves.
Right.
And they will, you
They
will
can
have
be
it.
too extreme.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, I don't know, I have a dog, you have a dog. Like, you can also train it. Just I'm
Right.
sure the same as our our white wolf or our dark wolf. I'm
Right.
going, hey, well, what time am I investing in myself to train these wolves?
Mm-hmm.
Or are my wolves running rampant because it's just not worth the time and the effort to do it because
Right.
I'm so stressed and overwhelmed that I'm going to disassociate. I'm going to do all these programmings that I've had for my entire life.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like what people struggle with the most right now at large, our civilization, our society is really struggling to do self-evaluation because it all starts there.
True.
We're always looking at who is wrong or who's bad or who's good, and we always want to put people in a category, which is understandable because that's how we try to discern like how to navigate life.
Where would we
Mhm.
go?
We want to go this
Yeah.
way. These guys are making all the money, or whatever that looks like. But
Diddy parties. Yeah, we know. We know.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Bring
Speaking
out
of
the
aliens,
baby oil.
Ew.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yikes! Yeah,
Definitely aliens.
Yeah.
damn it.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, it's self-evaluation. The second thing I think we need to work on is humanity, is discernment. What is discernment from my perspective, is it's like 2 or 3 part. One, you gotta discern like who you're interacting with in the physical and the spiritual realm, because a person could show you one face and tell you all these things that may or may not be true, and you can hear them and be open to what they're saying, but what's the true intention that they're saying these things to you? And it's, if you're talking to a human, it's always coming from a wounded perspective where they're just trying to be accepted, loved. But at its core, like, we understand that even if people are doing bad things, that it's usually because in some way it's going to either protect or benefit them. It's not a justification, but if we understand it, we're not going to take it as personally. It doesn't put us in that polarity as much. We're like, yep, I know you're hurting, but it's not okay to do that. You know what I'm saying by that?
Yes.
So discerning the intention of a person will not allow us to take things as personally and not let people to take advantage of us. And we can still love them for where they're at, but not allow them to be a part of our lives if they're narcissistic in nature or destructive.
Those healthy boundaries. Yeah.
And the second form of discernment is a little devil or entity could be communicating with you or manipulating you in a way. They could even tell you lies, which they do, truths, which they do tell you truths. Devils will tell 70% or more truths to gain your trust in them. And then they'll twist it in a way that gets you to change your perspective. So you're creating something different in your life. And that's how you start feeding your dark wolf a little bit too much, if that makes sense. And it always is enticing or feeds those 5 senses and those lower chakras where you're just like, well,
food, money, sex, shelter,
Yeah.
Whatever.
And so discerning the spirits that are around us or the purpose of why they're telling us what they're telling us. And we don't have to be afraid of those entities. I just spent, not last weekend, but the weekend before, in a haunted house it wasn't intentional, but I have friends that I went to go visit, and I was staying in a house where there was a ghost there, and she was knocking stuff off shelves and hitting plants and doing all kinds of stuff. And I was able to connect with her. She was a 54-year-old woman when she passed. And she was just stuck because she was waiting for her husband. And she hadn't talked to anybody for decades, for as long as she's been dead. That to the point where when she saw that I could see her and communicate with her, it was I was able to kind of help her release her grip on that realm. So I was able to discern what her intention was, what was really going on with her, why she was stuck. And then she ended up partially leaving the lower fourth dimension and starting to transcend. She didn't detach fully, but I could tell she was processing through it. So she felt more at peace in the end. She
Sounds
would
peaceful.
hover over me. When I say hover, she would lean over me when I would be sleeping. And I'm like, can you just let me sleep for longer? I'll talk to you in the morning. She's sweet. She also didn't like the music that they would play at the house. And she realized she could trust my friends that moved in because they have 2 pit bull dogs. They're adorable. Because they treated them with love and respect. And she's like, okay, these guys are good. And then she talked about previous owners and stuff like that and little children. So
That's crazy.
yeah.
I want to go to one of those.
And I could see what she looked like and what she was wearing. She showed me her husband's body or something. He had cracked ribs and he died somehow from cracked ribs. I think something punctured his lung and he couldn't breathe anymore. So, yeah. Speaking of what a ghost is a ghost or a person that's lived that doesn't leave the lower 4th dimension between the 3rd and 4th dimension, where it transcends this plane where it can or realm where it's still, having lived in a physical body, can move physical objects and stuff like that. And so can entities, they can. But usually ghosts can do that more easily.
This last part is all in audio, guys. We love you so much. This conversation could go on for 12 hours. And this has been so amazing. Amber, thank you so much for coming here and opening up. I knew that you were supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I pressed you.
Yeah.
I'm glad I pressed you.
Right.
So take a deep breath. It's all
I was
good.
not comfortable, but I knew I was supposed to do it. And I was like,
Well, somebody out there
"Fuck it,
needs to hear
let's
this.
do it." Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of people that need to hear this. So,
And you did it.
yeah.
Right.
So thanks so much, guys. Go check out cannabisschool.us. Go to our website. Check it out. Our partner portal is up and active for all those dispensaries. And we're going to have Q&Ps on there and product companies.
Yeah. So we love you guys.
Take
Catch you
care.
next week.